The tale kicks off in a totally normal Japanese high school. Then Hideka Masamune sits alone at his desk, shaking with fear. Two of his classmates stride up, and the one with the earring shoves himself against him, palm landing on his shoulder as he grins. Then they shove Hidaka straight into getting them juice. The young man grips his notebook, nods along, and asks if they should go with seltzer juice. Then he suddenly realizes with a gut punch that he's been getting used like an errand boy every single day. The boys shove a few coins into his palm so he can grab some juice, and Hidaka just shrugs it off like it's all happening because somehow he's stuck with that Serban personality curse. He's already accepted it. Every sky hangs over him like a dull, gloomy lid, and that misery is just how his days go. A girl strides up to a pack of boys and tells them to stop, then challenges them. "Are you still messing with Hideo-kun?" right as they dump Hidaka on juice duty. The glasses-wearing girl starts roasting the boys, calling them out for acting like troublemakers when they're already in high school, but they won't back down. One of them just shrugs and says he'll buy them juice, then hits her with, "So what's the problem?" The bullies creep up behind a terrified Hidaka, and the boy with the earring plays it cool, claiming they're old friends, and asking if that's true. Hidaka won't say a word, so the other boy jumps in and swears it's exactly right, saying Kawashi-san just got the story mixed up. Then the girl blurts in shock because she can't believe they're saying it's true. Hidaka actually nods along with the bully, telling her classmate not to worry about him, but Kawashi still isn't buying it, so he decides to double-check and make sure everything really is okay. The boy jerks his gaze up at her, then snaps his eyes away and blurts out, "I don't get what you're talking about." He bursts out of the classroom, leaving the confused girl staring after him. Hidaka's convinced bullies come in just 4 kinds of people, and each one plays a different role in the bullying. He splits everyone into 4 roles: watchers, helpers, bullies, and victims. He steps out onto the roof, staring down at everything, and realizes the truth. What everyone really feels is that they never had to live a day in the victim's shoes. Hidaka strides to the roof's edge, grips the railing with both hands, and realizes this thing looks totally broken. He scrambles over the railing, plants himself on the very edge, and declares right out loud that it wasn't really him who got broken. And this world is shattered to the core. Hidaka throws his final goodbye out into the air and swears he'll end his life for good this time. As he crashes down, he realizes one brutal truth: taking his own life wasn't the answer. He just can't keep living like this. As he starts introducing himself to his classmates, he's convinced they won't even bat an eye that he's missing. Hidaka drops to the ground, and then the announcement hits like a punchline: Hideka Masamune is dead. The young man snaps his eyes open and stares at what's going on, completely stunned. He's standing in the middle of this massive hall, staring straight at a throne where a man sits like he owns the world. And on both sides, people are practically jumping with joy, bragging to their majesty that they finally pulled it off. Hidaka can't even tell if he's alive or where he's been all this time. The man on the throne beams as he greets the heroes, bursting with relief that they finally made it to him. Hidaka's totally lost. He doesn't get who these heroes are, and he sure doesn't understand what the man is talking about when he says it. Then Hidaka looks around and realizes the entire class has been standing behind him this whole time. The man introduces himself, Johannes Greyberg, and drops the bombshell: he's the 47th king of the state of Greyberg. Hidaka spins around, stunned that the whole class got shoved here. And the king admits with regret that he had to drag them in so suddenly. Then the boy who'd treated him like trash catches Hidaka's eye, and with fear crawling up his spine, Hidaka quickly looks away. His Majesty announces that the Kingdom of Greyberg has been battling magical entities for years, and nobody knows when this nightmare war will finally stop, so they throw up their hands and call for heroes to save them in a hopeless fight. The king declares that the summoned heroes will be stacked with insane stats and skills. And just as he's about to hit the next part of his speech, wham, somebody bursts in with a thunderous shout and yells at him to stop. The kid who mocked Hidaka just shuts everything down, smirking that he won't do a thing. Then he snaps back, asking what characteristics he's even talking about. Then he whips around to the king and demands, "Do you even get it? You've kidnapped every single one of them." Right by the young man's feet, a tiny explosion pops off. No damage, no injury, but it still blasts his nerves and makes him jump out of his skin. The king thrusts his hand forward, smoke spilling out like a warning, and declares he's pulled off magic, then quickly chokes out an apology for snapping into action so fast. The entire class flinched at the explosion, and King Greyberg defended himself fast, claiming it's impossible to make people who don't believe in magic understand what they just saw. Hidaka starts to feel it. This isn't his world at all. The king keeps on apologizing, then snaps, "You'll understand better if you see the magic for yourself." And the young man who had challenged him seethes rage tearing through him at how the king handled it. Right then, another classmate with the mole under his eye yells out, "Sai!" And the second Sai turns around, he snaps back, demanding why he just called him. He shoots back, "Look around, there's an armed squad of warriors watching us, so don't pick a fight with the king." Then he leans in and says, "Just talk to me. No one has any clue what's going on right now, and I'll hear you out." Two girls nod along with their classmates and beg Sai to shut it for a minute, but Sai agrees while looking like he's burning with absolute misery. The king tells everyone to finally chill. He has zero plans to kill the heroes they're spending all that effort summoning, and he admits it was brutally hard to pull them in. Then as Sai blurts out, "Wait, they're just high school students." His Majesty says that once they were summoned, each of them got a one-of-a-kind power and profession, and the ones who earn the title of hero are insanely talented. The long-haired girl grins and swears, "Say the word status, and you'll finally understand everything." Sai blurts it out, and bam, his status panel pops up, "Sayaki Kita, level 1 sage title hero, magic firehammer." The girl gasped and marched straight to the king, bursting with the biggest news: this boy was a true sage, the highest rank of knight, and he even carried a sacred attribute. The girl whirls toward the king and blurts that she can't believe what she's watching, and Hidaka spins around, totally lost. Then someone yells that the boy's a hero, leaving the king and his knights staring in shock. The girl with the mole leans in and tells him his stats are unreal. Her eyes lock as the panel flashes Ichijo Yakimura, a level 1 hero packed with powerful magic skills, plus a hero sword at his side. Hidaka's face goes pale. He's terrified, convinced this has to be some kind of full-blown madness. He thinks, these people were smiling in the first world, and now they get the chance to smile all over again, even in a whole new one. He feels it too, and in a near whisper, he slips out one word: status. In the panel, he spots it. He's a healer. His title says reincarnated, and his stats are embarrassingly low compared to everyone else. Hidaka stares at the panel, spots his title and profession, and rage surges through him as he snaps, dripping hatred. "So this is my blessing." With nerves rattling his bones, Hidaka blurts out that he wants the girl to tell him something, and she calmly asks what exactly he wants to know. The girl flashes a friendly smile, then the second he asks what a healer does, her expression snaps into something colder. She shoots back that healers are pros who live and breathe healing, and then she calls them the weakest class. Hidaka's heart drops with pure disbelief because he heard the cruel truth that he's the weakest. Saeki closes in and asks if he caught it, then he blurts that Hidaka is the weakest, and straight up wonders why Hidaka even bothered showing up here. The girl with glasses blurts his name, shouting, "Saki-kun!" and snaps that she wants to say something, but Saki cuts her off on the spot, claiming she can't argue with the truth. He's the most useless one in the whole room. Ichijo whips around to Sayaki and snaps that he's gone too far this time, then fires back. Did he really think he was being too rude to Hidaka? And before Sayaki can even answer, the kid shoots him a cheeky, "So are you telling me that..." A tiny elderly man shuffled up to Hidaka and demanded to know why his title was the only one claiming he had been reincarnated. The entire class whips around, all eyes locked on him, and Hidaka, reluctant as ever, starts to speak, but the girl glares at him with pure contempt. Hidaka, eyes darting away, finally admits he leaped off the roof. The old man nods and tells him, "I get you." The girl throws an open invitation, urging everyone to spill what they think their future holds. She says the first move is signing up for a special school, then going all in on training their powers so they can take the fight straight to the magical entities. The girl makes everyone line up in a circle and snaps she's teleporting them straight to the student dorm, and Hidaka, with his back turned, realizes he can't keep living like this anymore, so he ends it. Seiki snaps that Hidaka is still useless, even after everything they have been through. Like being a healer isn't already a better gig than sitting around unemployed. Hidaka keeps replaying everything in his mind, and even with that, he realizes he's still stuck living this cruel everyday nightmare. Sayaki claims nobody will remember him anyway, and Hideka can't stop thinking that even in another world, the universe somehow keeps things repeating the same old way. Hidaka can't shake the feeling that even in this world, Seiki is still being treated like trash. And just as Seiki's getting ready to leave, Hidaka's like, wait, is it really that hilarious? He whips around and demands the answer all over again. He strides up to Hidaka and demands, what did you just say? Hidaka shrugs it off, he doesn't care, and snaps that he's already fed up with Sayeki, who lunges in and grabs him by the collar. Hidaka slams it down. He's not going anywhere. The girl blurts it again. Stunned, she even has to ask. The girl asks, is it really true? And when she learns he's a healer, she suddenly thinks, I can't let him stay with his classmates. I'll move him somewhere else. He's stunned when she tells him about yet another place because the teleportation point gets picked at random, so he can't possibly predict where he'll land. She calls it their security system and says they can always count on it to back them up. Hidaka thanked the security system, but she shut that down saying he'd totally misheard her. She insisted the system was made for them alone and it would protect only them. She erupts with a loud shout, swearing this magical instrument was made to save their people, no one else. She's fuming. She got him dragged into a ritual to call down powerful heroes, and instead they summoned him as some useless healer. She snaps, furious, demanding how anyone could ever trust the safety of their own people to a guy like him. Sayaki sneaks up behind him and spits, so you still look like a pathetic loser to me even after all this. The girl shrieks that he's committed an unforgivable sin by squandering their strength and hope, and that he'll pay with his life. Hidaka snaps with rage, furious that it's always him getting stuck with everything. He rages and vows to tear them apart and burn this whole country to the ground, promising he'll destroy everything. Not even a single speck of dust will be left behind. Sayuki glares in disgust while the others stare in shock as Hidaka erupts in pure rage, screaming that he'll slaughter every last one of them, every single person. He creeps through pitch black darkness alone, and the only thing keeping him sane is the question tearing at him, how long has he been wandering? And where in the world is he right now? He taps up his status panel, stares at it like it's a verdict, and then basically calls himself weak to his own face. Then it hits him. His status spells it out. He's got an obsession with another world, and the whole thing was born from his burning longing for it. Hidaka flashes a grin and fires off. So you're saying I'm sick? Hidaka spots 3 chests, and the dread hits this could be a mimic, and he can't shake that thought. He stares back at how long he's been trudging, furious that all he's managed to pull off is grabbing a torch and stumbling into this pitch-dark room full of trouble. He cracks open the first chest and it's totally empty, like it was never there to begin with. He promises he'll check the other one, swings it open, and there it is. He freezes when he spots a tiny bottle packed with liquid. He scoops it up and figures that this tiny bottle has to be packed with some kind of magic potion. Suddenly, a booming voice barks for him to drink, and his heart drops. He whips around, terrified, and demands, who's there? From the dark, a voice tells him, if you want killing power, drink it. Hidaka snaps, what are you talking about? And the voice just orders, drink what's inside. He stares at the bottle, wondering if his whole life is just a hallucination, and then the memory hits him, being called useless by that girl and Seiki. With a harsh squeeze, he cranks the potion in his palm and tells himself one thing. If he drinks it, he'll finally seize the power he's been craving. He keeps thinking, like if life ever drops him into another world, he's throwing away the old timeline and starting from square one. He pops the potion open, gulps it down, and clings to the last shred of hope that he can still win in this world. Then he steels himself and drinks every drop. The bottle crashes to the floor and shatters into a million tiny pieces. He swears surviving a deadly labyrinth is nothing short of a miracle, and if he's going to gamble, he'd rather take his chances on that mysterious bottle than just wave goodbye to his life. The action kicks off inside the National Academies of the Kingdom of Ares, right in the heart of Greyburg. The students strut through the student dorm, chatting up a storm, and then someone blurts out that Ari-san is crazy cute. The bespectacled girl shoots him a confused look and blurts, did you really see my ugly face? Seiki just smirks and says, beautiful flowers always come with thorns. Ichijo snaps that those aren't thorns at all, and that her killing intent was real, Then he leans in and asks, "Do you think we'll see Hidaka again?" Ichijo leans in and asks Sayaki if she truly likes it, but Sayaki hits back and makes him answer again, so Ichijo snaps that he shouldn't pretend, and the whole conversation finally lands on Hidaka. Seiki shoots Ichijo a disgusted look, calls out how he's being far too kind, and tells him to cut it out because Seiki's done with this conversation. Kawashi snaps and brings up Keita out of nowhere. She admits she's been quiet for ages, but says Sayuki and Keita have always been bullying Hidaka. The boys shut down Kawashi's claims, flat out denying every word, saying they never did any of it. Sayuki snaps at them not to touch Keita, telling them there's nothing they can do. Then Hidaka insists that even if they point fingers, Hidaka will never return. Sayeki can't shake the feeling he's already dead by now, while Hidaka slumps unconscious in a dark room, surrounded by chests. He jolts awake, suddenly realizing he must have blacked out, and even with that brutal pain screaming in him, he insists nothing feels different. He can't stop wondering, was it always this bright, or did that liquid punch it into his eyes? Then he drops the torch, choking out that the price for it is the brutal, unbearable pain he's feeling right this second. He spots that one last chest he hasn't opened yet, pops it open anyway, and instantly wonders what kind of wild result it's about to unleash this time. Suddenly, this chest rips open and becomes a monstrous thing with razor-sharp teeth, and it charges straight at Hidaka. The young man has zero time to run, and the monster slashes into him, leaving him badly wounded. Hidaka erupts in a blood-curdling scream as agony rips through him, because the monster has already bitten off part of his arm, and now it's right in front of him, poised to strike again. Hidaka bolts out screaming, and the monster doesn't chase him. It snaps back into a regular chest the moment it turns around. Hidaka crouches somewhere hidden and fights with everything he's got to heal his wounded arm. He curses under his breath because he just realized it was a mimic. His health has plummeted to 42 out of 60, and his mana sits at just 38 out of 50, so he declares that healing won't save him and calls himself the weakest class of all. He finally realizes he can't beat this monster yet. Just as hope fades, his hand starts healing. Hidaka stared at the panel and saw the words he'd unlocked, a brand new technique called Goddess's Blessing, Divine Vengeance. He didn't just get it out of nowhere, he brewed it with the secret medicine of the God of Vengeance, and it came packed with reverse pole. Hidaka can't help wondering, what if that thing is the real secret behind all this? He scans the panel and learns the reverse effect can randomly flip any object's status, and that it can be shut off. But the moment it's canceled, the polarity sign snaps instantly to the exact opposite. Hidaka can't shake the thought that this whole mess is happening because of that healing. They announce that when Divine Vengeance fires up, the reverse pole flips, but instead of healing, it unleashes an erosion wave, and Hidaka blows up, shouting, "Why are you making such a big deal?" Because he still doesn't even get what erosion means. The panel explains it's an erosion wave shaped like a sphere. Once the user releases it, the deadly rip radiates outward and steals the life of anyone it hits. And if you spread your magic power out, you can stretch the blast's range even farther. Hidaka sits there, eyes locked on his panel, wondering if healing really morphed into the power that can stop the erosion wave. He thinks he can finally take down this monster, then hurries back to the chest. He realizes the chest is locked to the exact spot it's not going anywhere until someone finally comes for the opening. His hands still tremble even after he jams his left hand back into place, and worry gnaws at him as he silently prays he won't die. He unleashes an erosion wave that barrels straight at the monster, and then Hidaka rips it apart with his brand new skill. A tiny explosion erupts, and he realizes that's exactly how a reverse kicks in. He bursts out in loud, joyful cheers. He's won. Turns out the blessing of the goddess lights up, and before he can even breathe, he's prompted to pick loot. Hidaka's completely baffled because the goddess blessed him even though he never used it, and now he's wondering if he can still cash in and grab his loot. On the panel, he scans the details of mimicry, the skill that lets you swap your look, and then his eyes snag on Royal Ark, a storage space, plus the potion labeled Lesser Restoration. He's convinced that the Royal Ark will help him too, and he's blown away to find that inside this simple box, there's tons of useful stuff. An announcement blasts out that the Mimic is a level 500 Guardian, and Hideka's jaw drops because there's no way a monster this strong was just sitting there. Level up notifications are blasting in by the hundreds, nonstop, and he can't help wondering how long this chaos is going to keep raining down. One notification flat out says, the healing power just got boosted, all because your level went up. Hidaka's jaw drops. Magic has levels too, and his healing skill just shot up. But Hidaka can't catch a break. Notifications are flooding in by the dozens, and it's driving him insane. Hidaka glanced at his stat panel and froze because his level, skills, and abilities had skyrocketed in a way that didn't make any sense. The young man stares at the panel and says, I don't know the rules of this world, so how can I call this strength if I'm not sure it measures up? He can't stop picturing his classmates, and dread creeps in, because what if they're all way stronger than him? The young man stared into the pitch-dark corridor and decided it was time to press on. As he strolls down the path, he suddenly spots a gigantic, mysterious gate looming just ahead. He's sure something wild is waiting for him on the other side of those gates. So before his brain even catches up, he lunges forward and tries to pry them open. He can't unlock the doors by himself, and it drives him nuts. How is he even supposed to get in? Then boom, an idea slams into his head on how to pull it off. He grits his teeth, unleashes his magic skill, erosion wave, and blasts a massive round hole right through the gate, then decides that being perfectly honest isn't always required. Hidaka steps into the huge hall, and right in front of him, a staff floats in the air like it's been waiting for him. Overjoyed, he barrels to the staff and blurts that he's been waiting forever just to finally get his hands on the equipment. He darts in, but the second he reaches for the staff, a brutal earthquake slams the ground out from under them. He's completely lost. Then the room starts roaring and shaking like it wants to rip itself apart. Hidaka hears a thunderous bang overhead, whips his head up, and sees the ceiling split wide open, cracking and tearing as it keeps falling. The ceiling finally gives way, and a huge crash echoes as something smashes to the floor. Hidaka's blood runs cold with real terror. A hulking knight in armor drops in right in front of the young man and slams his massive sword toward him. Hidaka refuses to believe this monster could be the guardian of that staff. The blade bites the air inches from him, and at the last second, Hidaka whips into a dodge. The guard slams his sword into the ground so hard it explodes into splinters that streak straight for Hidaka. And even Hidaka knows one thing: this guard is brutally out of his league, yet he clings to one hope: his resistance has skyrocketed. So he thinks he can still take him down. Hidaka flicks his protective aura up, and right away he sees it. The giant has driven his sword into the ground so hard he can't yank it free at all. The young man snaps to attention. This is it, his shot to crush the enemy, and he launches into a furious magical assault. He slams the guard and tears him up hard until the knight drops to his knees, collapsing from the damage. The young man instantly assumes he's already won, and for a second he's both shocked and thrilled that it was way easier than he ever imagined. But the guard jerks upright and smashes Hidaka with a brutal hit. Hidaka rockets back into the wall, and it cracks under the impact. The knight rose to his feet, and the young man froze because he couldn't understand it, not after believing he'd already beaten him. Hidaka starts healing himself, and the second he catches his breath, he realizes if he hadn't wrapped himself in that protective aura, the whole situation could have gone wildly out of control. After leveling up, he suddenly realizes he's getting way too cocky for someone who's just a healer, so he stops thinking and decides it's finally time to unleash his full power. He lunges at the enemy with every scrap of strength he has left, and his blow hits way harder than it did last time. His blow slams into the knight and leaves it still. Hidaka snaps awake to the truth. This is the end, and the guardian vanishes on the spot. A fresh notification pops up, and boom, Elder Knight Sword plus skill upgrades. It even says Mimic Style lets you hide your status at a higher level, and Hidaka can't believe it. Like, wait, it really works like that. The young man stares at the panel, and it hits him. He's already level 212, but then he blurts out the gut punch. His magic level is only level 5, the absolute lowest. He still remembers the girl who mocked him as the weakest class, and every time those words slam into his mind, he fights back because one day they'll see he was never that weak. A notice pops up. He's been handed a brand new magic item, Holy Wrath packed with the Holy Attribute and Holy Light. Hidaka clenches it in his hands and studies it like his life depends on it. He stares at the notification and sees it's a magic item, and pure joy hits him. He's convinced he'll need it sooner or later. Everything kicks off at the National Academy of the Kingdom of Ares Training Ground number 1. The exhausted boy crumples to the floor, and the teacher leans in asking how he feels. He swears he's fine. Then the teacher points out his magic circle is unstable and demands pure, focused concentration. Teacher Philip Butler insists the boy's explosion magic is insanely powerful. So powerful it's hard to rein in, but he needs to learn how to unleash it without chanting or even a magic circle. Philip adds, "If I can't pull this off, I can't beat even the most ordinary demon." He tells the boy it's his duty to be a hero, and the boy nods, ready to do it. Under the shade of a tree, Saeki and his comrade hunker down and stare, eyes locked on the drama as it unfolds before them. Saeki, fuming, snaps that they don't have any magical power at all then. When the other guy admits he missed it and asks again, the young man explodes right back, saying, "So what good is their magic then?" Seiki tells them that, in the end, only one boy from all of them can wield his magic. Then his friend blurts out that he finally gets why Seiki can't stop thinking about that kid. He snaps at Sayaki that they're nothing but decorations, that being a hero and being called one aren't the same thing, and says there's nothing anyone can do about it. Sayaki's heart sinks into crushing disappointment, but she swallows her feelings and nods along anyway. Hidaka downed a thick, heavy drink like it was meant to hit hard. He strides down the hallway, bottle in hand, and grins, saying that even though it's his first time drinking sake, it tastes absolutely amazing. He can't believe his luck. Then he stumbles on a food warehouse, and just like that, the food problem is handled for now. He spots this huge door and immediately thinks, "Let's do it." He yanks it open, peeks inside, and before he can even react, he hears someone say, "You made it here." A sharp-eared man sits on the throne, stares Hidaka down, and calls him an adventurer, while Hidaka just freezes in total shock, not understanding a single thing. He stops and looks around, stunned by how totally different the air feels where he's standing. A man corners a wild, magical, flying-eyed creature named Zuri and demands to know how many years have slipped by since the last adventurer came to see him. The one-eyed creature with a tail and bat wings snaps back that about 150 years have gone by. That man's mind races and then shock hits when he realizes just how much time has actually gone by since then. He rockets up from his throne and roars that today is finally their holiday. He strides up to Hidaka and declares, "I'm Shaolin, the Snake King," then gestures at the young man to start. He rushes up to Hidaka and challenges him to a fight. Right now, Hidaka feels a weird twist in his stomach, so he snaps his eyes away and looks. The Snake King drove a sword straight into his own stomach, then burst out, "I finally remember what this feels like." He yanked the blade free, cackled like a villain, and bragged that for him, this is the most wonderful feeling in the world. The young man panics, sure he can't breathe, while Sean snaps that he's disgusted. This is the adventurer he's been waiting on for 150 years. As Hidaka grits through his healing, the king storms off and coldly says, "They've grown way weaker since then." Then Sean whips around to the youth and demands, "So you're a priest?" Zuri begs for a moment to study his traits, and the magical creature blurts in shock that this young man is a healer. Then the Snake King insists there's no way a healer could have gotten to him on their own. Zuri blurts that something's off, but the king doesn't get what the creature means, so it steps in to explain. Then it tries to warn them about the young man's skills, yet it never gets to finish before time runs out. Hidaka grabs his staff and smashes the creature with a burst of holy light. One strike is all it takes, and the magical beast crumples into nothing, evaporating on the spot. A notification blasts onto your screen. Bam! The goddess's blessing is live, and you've got to rush in and grab the loot. The king erupts, shocked that the youth dares to strike and actually wants to go after him. But Hidaka slips past him and lands the attack first. He unleashes his magic attack, feels the Snake King fall, and immediately wonders, is this it for me? But Shoan snaps out of the way of that magical strike, so the king lunges into a furious shout, demanding what kind of magic this is, only to realize his sword has been hacked clean off. Hidaka is fuming, only his sword got wrecked, and it's driving him insane. The king gashes Hidaka and roars that the young man killed Zuri, then storms in to take his sword away. Hidaka crumples to his knees after that brutal hit, and Sean leans in, asking if the kid still thinks he'll walk out alive today. Hidaka patches himself up, then locks onto one terrifying thought: he can't even see the Snake King because the bastard is moving way too fast. The king stares at the staff and fires off the question, Did you create the magic that wiped out my magical creature? He's convinced it's true, but he can't figure out why there's not a single sign it's ever been used. Sean, completely baffled, blurts that Hidaka is behind everything. Then the young man shoots back that the flying eye already warned him he's the healer. The Snake King slashes Hidaka no mercy because he refuses to trust a single word, and he's sure the kid is secretly hiding his true status. The enemy growls at Hidaka to spill the truth right before he carves him up completely, but Hidaka just won't break, insisting he's a healer. The king keeps slashing him, spits that the youth is a liar, and even insists Hidaka could have killed him too, so that's exactly why Zuri stayed on guard the moment she clocked his moves. Hidaka sprawls on the floor, battered and helpless. He can't even lift himself. And the cruel truth hits his recovery will never come. Sean yells that he's definitely got a secret because a healer can't use offensive magic. Hidaka straight up insists again and again, "I'm a healer." Rage flares on the throne as the king roars, demanding to know his name. The boy can't wrap his head around why he even needs his name, because he's still stuck on Saeki's warning Neato fits him way better than being a healer. With his body wrecked by multiple injuries, Hidaka still forces himself back on his feet, and then, through clenched determination, he answers that his name is Neato. He spirals on the truth that his new name is Neato, and he's desperate to throw it everywhere, plotting his revenge under that mask, convinced that being killed by Neato would be the ultimate soul-crushing humiliation. The king taunts, asking if he's Neato, and the kid snaps back, yelling, "I'm Neato," like he's flipping the truth upside down. "Not Neato, not Neato." Naito rages and barks, "Do I sound like I've got hearing issues?" While Sean chuckles and fires back, "So what kind of hero are you supposed to be?" Naito barks in pure irritation, yelling that he's a healer, like he hasn't said it 100 times already. The king glares at him, disgusted that this is so dull, then lunges in, slashing the boy's body with brutal, deep cuts. Neato crumples to the floor in death, and the Snake King looms over him, declaring that the time of his end has finally arrived. The enemy lashes out with his weapon, hunting Neato's life in one brutal swing, and Neato's thoughts crash in "This is how it ends," right here before he's ever truly done anything with his life. Right at the last second, he tears through with a brutal wave of erosion, clamping the sword in place and slamming into the king. Then the king realizes too late, because that crushing hit comes out of nowhere and lands like a wrecking ball. The beaten enemy stares in shock, stunned that the boy still has enough mana to cast magic, because in all 150 years, nobody has managed to bring him down, not even once, except Neato. Neato says the king's a beast in a fight, and then Shone bursts out laughing at the kid for trying to size up his fighting just to get judged like, "Come on, that's just generosity, right?" The Snake King tells him to bury his real identity, but Naito just can't wrap his head around why it even matters. Sean says the old Snake King, who once lived for hundreds of years and was feared across the whole continent, lost to him so effortlessly it's unreal. Lying on his deathbed, he grabs Neato again and demands to know if he's truly a healer. Then when Neato stays silent, he lets out a grim breath and decides he finally believes him. The king declares that the elementary class's legendary unknown magic will pull in everyone else, and soon all eyes will be on it, with everybody scrambling to claim it for themselves. He swears this world tosses aside anything it can't grasp and tells the weak classes to stay weak, so the smartest move is for the youth to bury his power where nobody can stare at it. Nato goes straight to the king and begs for permission to speak. Then Sean shoots back. "So what exactly do you want to know?" Nihito presses him for answers. Does he know anything at all about the god of vengeance? Sean can't forget that guy who said it right in his head. The man speaks to him and admits he made that choice for himself. The Snake King stays silent until the young man blurts "uncle," and the title hits him like a shockwave, sending him spiraling through every moment of how it all went down. He breaks into a grin, admitting that hearing that name hit him with pure nostalgia. Then Neato beams and asks if it means the king already knows something about him. Sean admits that even if it's been ages, he still remembers this nickname belongs to a real adventurer, while Neato has no clue what adventurers even are. And the Snake King smirks that if Neato keeps traveling, he'll figure it all out for himself. The young man's convinced the king's hiding something, but Cheon shuts him down cold, saying he had way too much fun last time. The Snake King leans in and demands Neato's real name, because he knows the Neato title was just a mask, so the kid finally caves and answers, Masamune Hidaka. Sean flashes a grin, tries to blurt out the name of the guy who came before Neato, but time runs out. Neto calls out to him, swears his whole character has changed from before, but the Snake King can't hear a word anymore. He's gone, killed by his wounds. Then a notification blasts and the blessing of the goddess is activated, and now there's a loot collection request waiting for him. Nito's eyes snap to it. Sean's sword is already soaring through the air. The kid gets handed the Kurgle snake sword, and Naito's left staring like, wait, is he really meant to swing that thing? Or is he just a healer and totally out of his depth? The young man locks eyes with the king and declares, loud and clear, that he deserves the credit. Naito taps into the evil eye of truth, and suddenly he can read a target's status like a flashing death notice, and he's sure it's Zuri's flying eye that passed it to him. Sean hands him the skill, divine speed, the kind that turns him into a blur, so the young man stares at the fallen enemy like, why hasn't he vanished yet? Nito spots a ladder ahead and darts toward it, praying it's the way out of this brutal labyrinth. He barrels up the stairs and decides right then and there that he's getting out of this place no matter how long it takes, and he won't drop dead until he's paid back every one of his offenders. Nito realized magic could knock out a hangover instantly, and that meant he had one more excuse to keep crushing sake. As he hauled himself up the stairs, all he could think about was when this nightmare would finally be over. Suddenly, a scream tears through the air. Zeke snaps his head around, feeling something lurking right behind him, and Nito whips her gaze around, dead certain she heard a voice. Nito finds himself dropped smack in the middle of a thick, tangled forest, and utter confusion crashes over him. He spins around, stunned. How the heck did he end up in this forest when he's certain he was just climbing the stairs? A weird feeling hits him, and he jumps to teleportation even though he's sure he never touched anything or pressed a single button. Nito can finally breathe. He busted out of that brutal labyrinth and hit freedom, and he's buzzing for the adventures that await in this brand new world until he hears a voice calling out, Alfred. He whips around to the voice and catches someone yelling for Zeke to be more careful. 3 young guys stand in the forest, and one of them yells at a girl named Elsa to pay closer attention, only for her to snap back that she knows that already, no lessons needed. The young man keeps grilling Elsa, insisting she didn't even flinch, and Nito just shrugs like they're ordinary people standing right in front of him. Meanwhile, they're all trying to crack who Nito is and how he wound up here. The long-haired boy shrugs and says, it doesn't matter, then pushes the idea that Nito might have overheard their whole conversation. He yanks his sword free and charges Nito like a storm, snarling to his friends that he's going to kill him right now. The boy is so sure Nito's been tailing them that he charges in with his sword, then Nito snaps at him to stop and drop the weapon, screaming that he has no clue what that long-haired boy is even talking about. That boy shrugs him off and charges straight at him, sword swinging while Nito snaps out of the way at the very last second, barely dodging the strike. The sword guy is itching to strike again, then Nito vanishes out of the enemy's sight in an instant, and pure shock hits him like lightning. Naito bursts in from behind the boy, screaming that he'll never let what he started end, unfinished sword blade poised right at Elsa's neck. The kid snaps, cursing and saying he caught him by surprise. Then Naito tells him to freeze, and the kid swears he's not here to fight, he just wants to ask something. Neato doesn't give the boy a choice. He demands he follow his orders, and right away he tells the kid and his friend to shove their swords back into their sheaths. Elsa snaps to Zeke that it's already over, that Naito moves so blindingly fast she couldn't even track him, let alone feel him closing in, and Zeke keeps his grip locked on his sword, already hunting for his next strike. The boy realizes they're about to get crushed, drops the sword, throws up the surrender, and begs them to spare his girlfriend. Neato gets this weird, nagging deja vu, like he's seen the same move before, so he doesn't buy the young man's story and thinks it's just another cheap trick. Zeke shoots back that he even tossed his hands off the sword to prove it, but Neato won't back down, still staring at him like something's off, while Zeke keeps insisting it's the truth and Neato can't stop thinking it over. At last, Neato loosens his grip and lets the terrified girl go. She breathes out a thank you, and he just nods like, all right, I'm moving on. Right when Neato is about to bolt, Zeke suddenly snaps, stop for a minute. Neato spins back, furious, and fires off, so you still want to kill me? The guy introduces himself, but Naito cuts him off with pure rudeness, Then Zeke steps in and tells Neato he's got just one request. The boy blurts out that he wants Neato's help, and Neato's eyes go wide, then a shaky, nervous laugh slips out before he can even react. Elsa blurts at Zeke, furious, "Don't pull Neato into this," and the boy barely gets a chance to even speak. Neato figures it's too much trouble for him to deal with, so he straight up refuses to help them. Then he snaps into action, warns them not to go swinging at other people anymore, tells them it's wrong, and with a sharp wave of his hand, he starts walking away. Neato barely gets started when Zeke snaps into action with fire magic giant. Fireballs slam into the sky and streak straight for Neato. He darts out of the way, stunned that this is actually happening, then blurts out to Zeke, "What are you doing?" The kid grips a fire hammer, and a massive fire blast starts to swell overhead, hanging in the air above him. Then he promises he'll play it cool. Zeke keeps pushing, begging for help while the attack rages, saying they only need a little help from him, until Neato's like, "This guy's a full-blown madman." The young man replays Zeke's words and the chaos unfolding around him, and it hits him. How does anyone even try to hide in a mess like this? Then he snaps into action, and Zeke is ready to finally explain why he asked for help. He fires up the evil eye magic, and boom, Zeke's stat panel pops up right in front of him, reading Zeke Latour Bach. And it's all clear this guy is a dragon knight with strong stats and a mountain of magic and fire skills. Neato straight up admits that jealousy is eating him alive. He rips into Zeke, furious that he'd waste that kind of powerful magic for no reason at all. Then Zeke shoots back that Neato only says it that way because he's never used it himself. Zeke keeps slamming in his assault, yelling at Neato to stop acting like that. As Naidu clawed his way up the stairs, he tried to flip one spell on its head attribute assignment, then watched as the nullification magic tried to shut it down. He already knew the thing couldn't be trusted until he saw exactly how far it reached and how huge the spell really was, so he'd waited until it was time to test it in a real fight. Neato tells him, "With the level gap this massive between us, I think I should strike now." Zack fires back, asking Neato what he means, but Neato ignores him and just slams nullification magic straight through Zack's spell. Using magic as his shield, Neato halts his own magical attack right on the spot. Meanwhile, Zeke's left staring at his magic circle like it just vanished, having no clue what even happened. Then it hits him Neato is a monster. Neato braces to strike back and spits, furious, whether they'd planned to pull that dirty trick from the very beginning. Elsa snatches Neato's hand and blurts out an apology for her comrade, panicked that he'll tear her friend apart, then insists he made a huge mistake trying to defend him. The girl shrieks that she knows she messed up, swearing she gets it, then she throws herself at Neato, begging him not to lay a hand on her friend, promising to do anything he demands if he'll just spare them. Neato suddenly gets hit by a flashback of the worst days when Siki mocked him to his face and acted hostile, so a shaky laugh bursts out of his chest. Neato's voice drips with disappointment as he blurts, "So now I'm the bad guy, right?" He decides again that he won't lift a finger to help these people, then turns his back and storms off to keep moving. Suddenly, Zeke shoots Neato a chance to join them as a comrade, and when Neato whips around, his face lights up with pure shock and confusion. Zeke reveals that he figured it out ages ago that he isn't alone, that he can change, and now he's hunting for strong partners, while Neato just stands there totally stunned. Zeke says their crew only has 4 active members, and life rarely runs smoothly, but right now they're desperate for power. Zeke swears Neato is exactly what their team needs, but the kid can't help wondering if he joins, what's he actually going to gain? Zeke tells him they'll get him whatever he wants, but Neato shoots back that right now, he doesn't need a single thing. Zeke leans in and asks, "Would you still say no even if we could grant you any wish you want?" Elsa snaps at Zeke to shut down his nonstop persuasion right now, but he won't budge. He's stubborn as ever, admits he's running out of time, and insists he needs a real comrade. Zeke thrusts his crunched-up hand forward and demands Neato take whatever he's offering. The young man grips the ring carefully, and Zeke tells him it's their lifeline. Then they flood it with magical power, letting them talk to each other from miles away. Zeke tells the Neato, "Don't just slam the door," and urges him to chew on their offer until he's 100 certain, then he answers. Zeke leans in and tells him they call their crew Dragonheart, then vows to wipe out the rotten elite for the sake of everyone. Neato chuckles with sharp irony, asking if they honestly think he's one of their little followers, because Zeke says they even staged a raid into the Duke's territory, and when it was over, Not a single soul was left behind. Neato can't stop wondering if they wiped everyone out, but with Zeke's words ringing in his head, he decides to grab the ring and carry it with him, only for Zeke and Elsa's comrade to stare in stunned disbelief. He gasps when he spots Neato pulling out a spatial storage spell, and Neato smirks, "So it's that rare, only for the boy to shoot back. I've never seen it in my entire life." Neato fires off a question about what the boy's going to do with his life, and Zeke grins and says they're headed straight for the kingdom of Greyberg right now. Zeke tells them this country called Heroes a month ago, and they're ready to dig in. Then Neato's stomach drops as he realizes it's already been a whole month since he and his entire class got ripped into this world. He can't shake the fear that he's missed a ton of crucial moments, and when Zeke senses Neato is panicking, he leans in and asks what's wrong. Neato got so swallowed by his own thoughts that he ignored the question, and when he finally snapped back, he threw out a lie, said he was just thinking about heading into town. Elsa beams and tells them they're headed straight for Hausen, set to reach it on foot in just 3 days. Then Zeke nudges Neato and snaps, "You still never said your name, you know." The kid realizes he can't hand over his real name because they're headed for Greyberg, so he introduces himself as his cover name Neato. Then, out of nowhere, it hits him the Snake King Sean once called him Neato. He decides that from this moment on, he'll go by Neato, and when the young man tilts his face to the sky, he bursts into joy over the freedom he's been waiting for. He trudges slow through the forest, soaking up the peace because for once, he doesn't have to do a thing. Then a sudden snap of noise rips through the trees. A pack of wild wolves bursts into view, and Neato's grin goes bright like he just found his moment at last. Because yeah, this is another world. Neato says things are getting real fast, and he just needs to blow off some steam before it all explodes. First, he tries to read their status with magic, and what he sees hits him like a lightning bolt. He clocks that they're way too low for him level 8, and it snaps him back to Zeke's 48, where he'd assumed that was just how this world worked. He's fired up for a fight and declares it's finally time to start raking in loot. Neato hears a polite shout telling him to duck. Then before he can even react, someone darts past him straight toward the wild wolves. In mere seconds, this guy wipes out the whole pack of hunting wolves in one shot, no sweat at all, and then warns Neato, "This place is deadly for you." The one who wiped out those wolves without breaking a sweat is a short-haired cutie, and she's right there asking Neato if he got hurt. The young man shoots back that he's not hurt at all, yet he can't stop thinking this is way too much. Right as the girl proudly declares that Neato's life isn't in danger anymore, after that terrifying situation, Neato snaps his focus to her stat panel and learns her name is Shara Eckhart, a senior knight, level 32. The girl steps right up to Neato, but her words don't land with a smile. Confusion hits her as she realizes he doesn't look happy at all. And the closer she gets, the more scared Neato gets of Shara's closeness. A loud voice yanks the girl from the carriage, "Miss Shira," and she hurries inside, climbing in right alongside Neato. The guy sitting there wasn't a stranger at all. He was a merchant. He flashes a friendly grin, calls himself William Vector, and then points out his cabman, Kays. He shoots you a dry grin and says, with zero warmth, that he's genuinely happy to meet you. The girl introduces herself as Shara Eckert and pins Neato with an unblinking stare, never once looking away until Neato blurts out the nickname he picked. And Shara reacts like it's downright bizarre. Neato can't help but think, what's her deal? William tells Neato they're headed with the goods to Rothhausen, then grins and admits he ran into Miss Shara totally by chance while he was hunting for an escort in the capital. Neato sheepishly shrugs and says he'll probably just end up in their way, but the merchant fires back that the more companions they bring, the better their journey will be. The man bursts into praise, gushing that he's never seen anything like it. She sensed something was off and sprang out of the carriage so fast he didn't even get a moment to understand what was happening. He confessed that up to now, he'd never actually seen the White Royal Knights in action, just heard endless stories about them, while Shara, with a humble shake of her head, insists she didn't do anything special. Neato can't stop wondering who the Royal White Knights really are, and William's jaw drops when he realizes the kid doesn't know a thing about them. He explains that the capital of Rothhausen is run by a royal bloodline that's owned the throne for generations, and right now, the ruler is King Arnold Rothhausen. William keeps talking, and he reveals the truth: the Royal White Knights are stationed in the capital, and they answer to the king, only the king. The man adds that the Royal White Knights only show up in public now, and then most people barely know anything about them at all. William turns to Cher and blurts that stumbling on a night like her in a place like this feels like a miracle. Then Cher flushes and tries to shut him down, denying every word. Neato suddenly realizes he never saw this coming. No way could he expect to run into a white-haired girl, and the moment he really looks at her, he swears she looks exactly like the heroine from another world. Shara blurts out that she knows something about William too, and the merchant can't help but laugh, saying he doesn't even come close to her, especially her leg. Shara gushes over William, swearing you can snag the rarest treasures from him, stuff you'll never find anywhere else. And then she declares that every merchant in the world knows his name, even the folks in neighboring kingdoms. From Shara's words alone, Neato is sure William has to travel with a companion. No questions asked, and the merchant, he can't hide his excitement because his business is booming fast. William presses Neato on how he wound up in a place like this, but the kid shuts down the full story and tells the whole truth anyway, claiming he was only chasing a little adventure, and that William guessed right, Neato was on his way to the guild. Neato can't help it. He just knows there's got to be some place in this world where every single one of our dreams gets born. He tells the merchant, "This is where I'm headed." And right then, Shara flashes a warm smile, offering to escort Neato straight to the guild the moment they roll into the capital. The girl leans in, curious about what class Neato's in, but the young man hesitates. He's not sure he can spill the real truth about himself. Neato clings to Shon's warning to hide his identity, and to every word Zeke shoved into his head, then spirals into doubt, trapped between choices as he tries to figure out what he should do next. He even weighs lying, claiming he's a sorcerer or a swordsman, but the idea hits him like nausea in his gut. And before he can answer, Shara pivots back to him, eyes locked, waiting for his reply. Neato finally snaps and tells him the truth. He announces he's from the healer class, and William's jaw drops. Then William figures Neato's just hunting for a team in the guild. The young man shoots back that if fate ever hands him that kind of chance, he'd gladly accept whatever story it leads to. Sherry pushes the idea, "Let me talk to the guild," she says, and she's sure that if they team up, they'll nail something that fits perfectly. The girl grins and declares, he'll find partners for sure, because even the toughest, most battle-tested adventurers still need a healer on their side. She grins and says he can become a shining example for all those people getting crushed by their low-class. Neato clocks her confidence and vows he'll do everything in his power. While they push on toward the capital, Shara throws out, like it's nothing, "Hey, Neato, want to learn fencing?" Shara snaps the truth into him when he trains swordsmanship. His mana doesn't get drained at all. Because it isn't a magical attack, Neato blurts in shock, "Wait then, how in the world can healers use a sword?" The girl can't believe Neato would think a healer can't swing a sword, and she shoots back that healers can use anything: an axe, a sword, even a rapier. Neato finally gets it thanks to the girl's words. He realizes the class isn't nearly as restricted as he thought, because healers only know how to heal and nothing else. Neato decides to test the healer. Can they really throw fireballs or crack the air with electric shocks? Shura shuts it down fast, saying that kind of magic is just too hard for them. She kicks off her explanation and lays it bare mages and healers aren't the same, because the magic they wield is built from totally different roots. Neato fired off a question about what attribute assignment even does, admitting he's still a beginner and barely knows anything. Then Shara cut in, saying it's nothing like magic attribute, and Neato demanded the real difference, point blank. She tells him the real truth: only weapons can be given attributes, because that's pure magic, so trying to sling fire or water without magical power is straight up impossible, and Neato barely understands any of it. Shara blurts that it's wildly unusual for a healer to lean on a sign attribute, then hits him again with the same hard advice: pick up swordsmanship, and Neato's convinced that this kind of skill is going to come in handy in this world. Cherie practically beams and begs Neato to tell her the second he decides to pick up fencing. Neato and his crew rolled into a tiny village named Tanya, and William immediately pushed for a stop there so they could finally catch their breath after that brutal, long journey. They spilled out of the car, and right away they spotted a bunch of men huddled around someone, so they pushed in, grabbed the locals, and demanded to know what just happened. In the middle of that roaring crowd, an elderly man spotted newcomers who just arrived in their village and demanded, "Who are you?" Neato, Shara, and William stepped up, introduced themselves, and said they were headed to Rodhausen and only needed a few days in their village, but the man's face fell as he apologized and told them straight up the village couldn't take in any guests right now. The village elder leaned in and told us the truth. Bandits just hit their village, and they hauled every young girl away. The locals erupted into shouting, swearing they wouldn't sit around anymore, and it was their job to save the kidnapped girls, the exact reason they'd all packed in here in the first place. Shura tells everyone these bandits aren't like the usual kind. This attack on the village was too carefully planned, and she's sure they're tied to the illegal goods dealer. Then she drops the terrifying truth. They're running out of time before the girls get snatched away. After piecing together everything she learns, the girl snaps to a conclusion. Locals can't save the girls alone, and they need outside help now. Shura bravely speaks up and vows that they'll go out there and rescue the girls, no ifs, no buts. The village chief snaps that this can't be right because they're guests in his village, but William shoots back, saying they're not guests yet, and the elder can count on them. The merchant swears Kaya's and Shara can wipe them out without breaking a sweat, because both of them are freakishly strong. Shara marches up to the villagers and demands any clue on where the bandits' camp is. Then chaos erupts in the crowd, and out of nowhere some guy yells that he knows the exact route. A young boy named Jake steps right up and declares, loud and fearless, that he's tracked the bandits from the very start of their attack while every adult was away hunting. He trailed the bandits himself and carved marks into the trees to prove it. He says that after he hauled himself up the mountain, he finally spotted their camp, and there, behind iron bars, sat his mother and all the other girls. The elder tells Jake that his mother is the only family he's got left, and Shara snaps that they've got to move right now before the girls get snatched away. Jake boasts that he can lead them straight to the bandit camp, then shouts that he's going to save everyone, so the four of them charge up the mountain, and there it is, a bandit camp, right in front of their eyes. Shara tells the boy to go back to the village alone, claiming she can't risk staying because the deadliest part is about to kick off, so Jake nods fast, then slips away in silence, running like he's trying to outrun fate. Neato watched the bandits and the kidnapped girls, and it hit him. This whole nightmare felt exactly like a moment from a game he knew. Shura leans in and whispers to Neato, telling him she'll give him the signal once she and Kaze wipe the area clean. Then she politely asks him to wait right here. Shura tells him healers can't throw offensive magic, and Neato nods along, promising he'll stay put, calming her down and rushing to her side the moment anything goes wrong. Neato watches the girl walk off, his pride stinging at her words like, because he's a healer, he's supposed to stay put here. He scoffs at it, thinking his level doesn't need that rule, but deep down he remembers Shara doesn't even suspect any of this. He steadies himself by clinging to one thing he still craves, the chance to watch someone like a royal white knight. In the village, the elder anxiously ponders whether the four of them can really take on an entire crew of bandits. William pleads, trust us, and the bombshell drops. Says has joined too, and Shara is now the royal white knight. The girl drove her blade through one bandit like a pro and kept moving, and the instant Shara flashed the signal, Neato slipped out of hiding to study the big bandits Shara had already dropped. He mutters about what's happening and admits, yeah, this is exactly what he expected from Shara, the royal light knight, because of course she'd be here, but she only shoots back that there aren't supposed to be this many of them. They rip the girls free and spread them out, then hit the road for the village, promising they'll escort everyone the whole way so the girls feel safe and stop panicking. Shara feels insanely lucky since the rest of the bandits scattered elsewhere. But even with nobody around, Neato can't shake this uneasy feeling. He snaps his head around, scanning the area. Shara pushes Neato to go further, but he snaps back. Don't drop your guard. Stay alert. Right then, a voice cuts in, asking where they're headed. The bandits barreled back to their camp and boxed Neato in with his comrades and the rescued girls. And when Shara recognized them and started to speak up, one of the bandits snapped her down, cursing that you can't trust those guys with a single thing. Neato snaps to it. The whole kidnapping was just a decoy, while Shara squares up and points out the man as Oliver Joe. He blurts in shock that she knows him, and she calmly tells him the truth. He's the former Royal Knight of Rodhausen, and he once led the capture unit called the Ash Squad. She tells me that 2 years ago, the squad leader snapped overnight, killing every one of his own men, and that single blood-soaked act lit the fuse for the war. Oliver dips his head with a sharp little smirk and fires back a sarcastic thanks for the intro, then grins like, look around, I'm a gangster now. Shara can't wrap her head around why people won't stop tailing him, And then Oliver presses her again, like he already suspects the reason. He can't stop wondering, does anybody still cling to those royal and knightly oaths to their country? Or is he right that those rotten promises are totally useless anyway? Shara blurts back, shouting that the current king of Rothhausen is unbelievably generous, but Oliver snaps it all back by bringing up his order, the dreaded absolute. He tells her the killers have the same eyes as Shara, then leans in and asks, "Do you really think someone who's pledged themselves to my country should still carry eyes like that?" He figures Shara will finally snap back that she's nothing like that, so he beats her to the punch and offers her the chance to sell herself for an even higher price. Oliver barks orders for the bandits to wipe them out, and the second the command hits, they attack like monsters with no mercy. Meanwhile, Shara throws herself in front of Neato and pleads for him and the others to move, trying to shield everyone all at once. Shara doesn't hesitate for a second. She blasts the bandits with ice front and drops several attackers in a single, ruthless strike. Oliver claps his hands and grins, saying this is exactly what you'd expect from the White Royal Knight, while Shara's fuming because he actually clocked her magical attack. Oliver swears that if she's a green fighter, she'll never be able to keep a single secret from him. While Shura's eyes are off him, one bandit spots Neato left totally unguarded and lunges in using the distraction to attack. Out of nowhere, Case slams into view and obliterates the enemy with an explosive barrier, ending him instantly. Then he whips around to Sheru and demands she lock her focus on the center. Neato can't help but genuinely marvel at Sharon Kai's skills, certain those attacking bandits couldn't possibly pull off anything at that level. Shara and Kai's didn't just fight back, they crushed their opponents in seconds, like it was effortless. And as Oliver watched, he realized the bandits were pitifully weak. After all these years stealing, they still hadn't learned how to grow stronger. Shara wipes out the last bandit, and then boom, she hears a voice she knows like family, screaming for help. The woman spots Jack, cradled in Oliver's arms, and tries to rush to him, but she freezes. Jack yells, yet a bandit yanks him by the hair and snaps at him to shut up right now. Shara frowns in confusion and blurts, "So what are you doing here, Jack?" Oliver shoots back with a grin, like he's been trained his whole life to handle everything solo. Shara snaps that it was pure strategy stupidity to send him back home alone in enemy territory, then sternly orders the king's knight to let the boy go. Jack rips into a piercing scream, begging Shara to save him, while Oliver snaps, repeating angrily for him to shut up right now. Oliver rips into Jack, threatening to pierce his ear, or even his throat, just to shut all that noise down. He presses a knife to his own neck and, with pure sarcasm, dares the other guy not to accidentally kill him. Shara realizes she can't reach him in time, and tears spill as she cranes her voice and screams the boy's name. Suddenly, Neato pops up behind Oliver, dagger clenched in his hand. Neato whips a knife and drives it straight into his neck so fast neither Oliver nor the others even clocks what just happened. Oliver drops dead almost instantly from the wound. Jack whips around, stunned, and demands how Neato got that close, only for the boy to dodge the question as he locks eyes with the crowd, which is frozen in shock, staring at him like they've just seen the impossible. His nerves are screaming, but he forces the words out. "All right, we've got to head back to the village now. The villagers are waiting, and if we keep them hanging, they'll start to worry." Case backs up Neato's words, but Shara snatches him by the shoulder and demands he spill everything to her first. The kid acts clueless, playing dumb, and shoots back. "So what do you want to know from me, exactly?" Shara spins him around and grills him on how he did it. She points out he's a healer, yet she can't wrap her head around how he rammed a knife into Oliver's neck and somehow moved fast enough to pull it off. She shrieks at him, demanding to know if he's hiding something, and when she sees Shara's fury explode, he realizes he's just walked straight into trouble. Shara slams it back into his mind, then orders him to show her the status right now. Neato, desperate to dodge this, blurts out a plan: go back to the village first. Shira grudgingly agrees, but she won't let it go. She presses him to explain everything the moment they're back in the village. Neato and Kai's are stranded by themselves, and the young man breaks out in praise, calling Kai's magic straight up amazing. Caius eyes Neato with pure suspicion and snaps back that his magic is nowhere near as good, and Neato can't help but think Caius looks like he's about to kill him. Neato watched Shira and the locals like a hawk, thinking, "I wasn't meant to show my power, but if I hadn't, Jack wouldn't be standing here right now." He's not about to brush off Sean's advice. But he's convinced he made the right call because to him, this act is pure good. The entire village held its breath for them to come back, and the moment they spotted the girl snatched by those bandits, joy exploded everywhere. Neato stood off to the side, savoring the sweet family reunion until he spotted a girl lurking alone by the barn, hood up so her face was hidden. He asked the girl if she's really going back to her family, but she doesn't even spare him a glance. She just keeps standing there, silent as stone, leaving Neato completely baffled. A short-haired woman leans in and asks the girl if she's from their village. Then the girl shrugs, saying that even though they were locked up together, she never learned where she came from because the girl wouldn't talk to anyone or answer a single question. Shara watches the girl struggle and quietly steadies her, saying it's all over now, no more pain, no more threats because they'll make sure nobody ever hurts her again. Shara tells her, "Stop spiraling, tomorrow we hit the royal capital. There we'll apply to a special institution so they can send you straight back to your hometown." Neato says that if a girl isn't happy, she doesn't have to stay, she can go wherever she wants. But as long as they don't figure out where she's really from, there's no way they can send her back to her hometown. Shira tells the boy to open up with gentler words, but to Neato and Shira's shock, the girl suddenly snatches the hem of his clothes. The hurt girl storms out, saying she's putting everything on Neato's shoulders, and the young man winces like he might have gone too far, only for her to shoot back that, for some reason, she just never really liked Shira. Neato's stunned she can actually talk. He blurts out, "Why didn't you say a single word this whole time?" The girl answers in a soft whisper that he's different, but Neato can't catch a single word she's saying. She yanks off her hood, lets Neato finally see her face, and then she introduces herself to Torika. Neato catches a glimpse of the girl's face and instantly turns red, embarrassment hitting him like a wave. Totorika leans in and asks if he's really listening, and Neato shoots back that he caught every word, then she demands he just call her by her nickname, Toa, while Sherry glares from the side like she can't stand what she's seeing. He's ready to tell her his name, Neato, then doubts hits like a punch, and he decides straight up that lying won't fix anything, so he grabs the truth and tells her his real name, Masamune. Tella shoots him a nervous look and begs him to call her Neato in front of everyone, and he agrees without a second thought. The boy demands to know why she got captured, but Tilla can only shake her head and say she doesn't have a clue. She tells him she was hiding in the forest when, out of nowhere, she just got snatched. Neato pushes to figure out where her home is, but the girl dodges the question again and swears she has no clue, so Nato decides they've got to wait it out. And Tilla nods along, backing him every step. As they cram supplies into the wagon, Case leans over and fires off, "So what do you think about today?" And William answers with a grin, turning the question on him, asking what Nita could pull off if he ever became a royal knight. Case figures this could be something jaw-dropping, then remembers how Nita wiped out Oliver with just a plain sword fragment and nothing else. And the real problem, at least to him, is the class Nito's trapped in. William can't stop wondering if Nito's going to snap into violence later, and it drives him crazy that an adventurer like this is stuck in a class that never fits him. He even predicts Nito's road will be rough. But chaos shuts that down instantly. Kais is totally sure that Nito will sail through life with zero problems, no trouble, no setbacks. He's dead sure that kid isn't just dangerous, he's a real monster. William's jaw drops at what he hears, and he blurts out that if Case really feels that way, then this whole situation just turned way more wild than before. William grins while Shara glares at Toa, who's sprawled and peacefully asleep on Nito's shoulder, and the moment the boy realizes Shara's eyes are on him, fear hits hard because that stare is downright creepy. At the crack of dawn, the five of them tore out of Tanya and pushed on toward Roadhausen. Suddenly, Shara snaps back to it. Nito promised he'd show her his status. She can't even process it, because she never thought a plain healer like him could take down an opponent like Oliver that easily. She's determined that this time he'll finally give a believable explanation, so she snaps, furious, "Are you really just a healer?" And he answers with a solid, straight-up yes. Nito points out William and Sherry, shows off the modified stat panel, and tells her he never even considered lying about who he really is. He points at divine speed and declares that it's the reason he reached Oliver that fast. Shura admits she gets it now and apologizes for how she acted before, and Nito quickly tells her everything's okay. He's got no anger toward her at all. He grins and thinks, "Man, I'm so glad I've got this facial expression style. because right now that skill is exactly what he needs. The carriage lurches to a stop at the massive walls, and William practically beams as he announces they've finally hit Rathhausen, while Neato just stares, thinking, yep, this is exactly what a capital looks like, because the city is absolutely enormous. They're strolling through the city streets when William suddenly stops and says he's splitting off right here. He's headed to the royal castle, and then he tells them to take care of themselves. Neato throws William a heartfelt thank you for that ride to the capital, and after they trade one last goodbye, the merchant heads off on his own. Shara grabs the plan and pushes, let's go to the guild, just like we agreed. They burst into this massive, gorgeous building, and inside, the place is packed with people, all laughing and tearing into good food at the tables. Neato can't believe the guild is mashed together with the tavern, so Shara yanks him toward the counter, and with a polite smile tells him to press his hand on the ball so they can check his status for his next registration. He plants his hand on the ball, ready to gamble with his Minix-style skill, double-checking it like, please work this time, because he's not trying to draw any more eyes than he has to. The girl behind the counter calls out the nickname he picked, and just like that, she tells him his moves are finally paying off. The ball flashes his corrected stats, and the girl confirms he's a healer, then she nods and seals the info, while Neato practically bursts with relief that it all landed exactly right. Shara proudly declares his registration is finally done, then leans in and asks what comes next. So Neato pauses, thinks it over, and turns to Toa like, want to head to the government right now? He says they can dig up info about her hometown there, but the girl keeps dodging it. She swears she'll handle it later, so Neato clocks it right away. Toa's mood is sinking. The young guy pulls the girl aside and asks if she wants to be an adventurer too, and she says yes on the spot, no hesitation. Just pure instant excitement. Suddenly, a stranger swoops in and clamps a hand on Neato's shoulder. A huge bearded drunk, mug in hand, slurs to Neato, want to share girls with me and my boys, and brags that he's already got two. Neato flashes a polite no, saying those girls are his friends, but right then, a thought hits him hard. The man is clinging to him like he can't let go. The man shoots off in anger, snapping, should we just leave already? I mean, you're just my friends, right? He quizzes Neato like, so you're only a healer, and then starts mocking him, saying Neato just lives off the group's scraps, and the second anything goes wrong, he bolts back home to his mommy. The Toe glares at the whole scene, and when the man calls them C-rank adventurers, he smugly insists they'll handle everything no problem. Shara jumps in, snaps that the man needs to apologize for what he said, and when he scoffs and asks why they even need this guy, he offers to stay with them, promising it'll be fun. Suddenly, a bunch of young guys in night uniforms burst into the guild, and it turns out they didn't come to browse. They came hunting for Shara. The girl rushes up to Shara, drops to her knees, and blurts out, laughing with pure relief that she finally found her. Then proudly says she's so happy Shara made it back to the capital, safe and sound. Shara turns to Annette and snaps, it's been ages. And Neato just stands there, shocked out of his mind at how fiercely Shara's being treated with respect. Annette whips around to Neato and blurts out, who are all these people? Shara shoots back that the guy isn't even worth a second of attention. Then she swings back in and introduces Neato and the Toa, telling them she bumped into them on her way to the capital and swore she'd guide them straight to the guild once they hit the city. Neato tells everyone that Shara's been taking care of them, and a smiling Annette lights up. So does that mean it's time for me to go back to the castle? Rage starts to boil in the man's chest as he yanks Shara by the collar, snapping that she's brave because she just refused to listen to his words. Annette slams him to the floor, yanks his arm in a brutal twist, and roars at him for the dare-touching Shirasama. The man screams back, insisting it hurts. After she handles him, Annette tells Shara to get out, and Neato can't help but stare because she just watched Annette flatten a C-rank adventurer like it was nothing. Standing by the guild, the sheriff says her goodbyes, then right before they split, she leans in and asks Toe if she's truly sure she doesn't want to join the government yet. Tella shakes her head and fires back that she's got everything under control, and she doesn't need it right now. Shara warns that if trouble hits, they should say they know Ekerert, and she orders Neato to look after Tella. The young man doesn't hesitate. He promises her she can count on him. The boys start plotting their next move, and Neato's mind snaps to one brutal truth: they've got zero money, not a coin. Out of nowhere, a woman strides up to them on the street, stares at their clothes, and gushes that they're insanely interesting. She ushers them into her shop and freezes when she realizes they're traveling with zero money. Because in this world, she says, going broke doesn't just hurt, it can get you killed. She spots the stains on Neato's clothes and goes, "Yikes, they're filthy." Then she grins and promises she'll still swap them for brand new stuff, and she'll even dig up something for the girl too. Neato honestly tells her their clothes are in rough shape, but the woman waves it off, then explains that they're stitched from ultra-expensive fabric, and tossing them is basically a luxury you can't justify. Neato's jaw drops when he realizes his plain school uniform is costing a fortune, but the shock turns into a grin the moment he gladly takes the store owner's offer to swap them for brand new clothes. She rummages for clothes and asks what class Neato is. She's sure he must be a warrior or a hunter, until the kid shrugs and says, "I'm just a healer." She's totally stunned. Neato leans in and tells her, "Trust me, this is going to take forever to explain." She cuts off the interrogation before it can go any deeper. She slips him a small bag and tells him it's made for one purpose, so he can haul all kinds of potions and medicinal herbs wherever he goes. Neato leans in and asks if the healer can use herbs, and the seller goes wide-eyed like, "Wait, you didn't know this before." The woman flat out explains that healers can only cast super weak healing magic, so nobody stops them from using outside additives to crank up the spell's power. The salesman drills down on the toes class, and Neato can't help thinking he might have missed her status too. The girl shoots back that she's a paladin, and the woman's jaw drops in total disbelief. Toa swings her stat panel into view, and Neato blurts out, "So what's a paladin?" And she grins, explaining that even humans call them magic swordsmen. She tells you the real reason paladins are special: they can swing steel and cast magic freely, and even fuse the two together. She claims the Toe are tied to a demonic race, and Neato suddenly remembers the king warning him about his country's endless war with those creatures, so that's why he dragged heroes in from another world. Neato asks what demons even are, and the seller, shocked out of his mind, blasts back, asking if Neato knows anything at all. She shoots back that she doesn't know much about the demonic race either, only that they stockpile a massive ocean of magical reserves, and that they dwell on the edge of the great forest. She can't help but wonder how fate hooked them up, because this duo is a wild, mismatched combination that somehow just works. Neato and Toa slipped into their fresh new clothes, and the woman couldn't stop staring. She swore their outfits fit them perfectly. The shop owner hands Toa a sword, then Neato bows and thanks her for everything. Still, the woman won't back down. She swears these new things cost less than her old clothes ever did. She hands over the remaining cash and tells Neato, "Listen, this is the only advice you'll ever need." She insists that everything will be okay in this country, but urges them not to spin pretty lies since demons aren't welcome anywhere. And Toe will draw eyes the moment they show up, packed with so much magical power they can't help but stand out. She snaps that if he's truly a real man, he won't stand by while someone lays a finger on Tilla. Neato stared at Toe and realized no matter where you go, prejudice always finds a way, because people refuse to accept what they don't understand. He fires back, promising he'll handle this for sure. The woman watches Neato and Tilla leave, flashes them a smile, and introduces herself as Sharon, then tells them they can come see her anytime they want. They're just sitting in the city, and Neato can't believe it. He's staring at her like, "I never thought I'd meet someone like you." He clocked it instantly. She was on a whole different league than the guild adventurers, who hovered around level 10 to 17, and at best topped out near level 23. But then it hits he's suddenly more curious about something else. So he asks Toa straight up whether she has questions about his status or if she just wants to come see him. The girl shrugs and coldly tells him she's already seen his status. Neato remembers it and leans in, asking her what she thinks of his current status. She smiles and says she finds it downright interesting. She says his status is abnormal, no softer way to put it, and Neato snaps, furious that even from a demon's eyes, he's still considered wrong. Neato can't believe it. How does someone as strong as her get dragged in by those puny, ordinary bandits so easily when she could swat them away without breaking a sweat? The girl nervously blurts out that she wasn't being difficult, she was just terrified. Her words hit Neato like a shockwave. He grills her about where she'd been before she wound up in that forest. She calmly says, "I was inside my castle," and it completely floors him. The boy starts guessing who she really is, convinced she's either a princess or some huge big shot the demon world can't ignore. He fires the question about what she's doing in the castle, and she snaps back a short answer, nothing special. Tilla tells them she trained with magic and her sword every morning. Then she sat tight with her parents all day, waiting for her sister to finally come back at nightfall. While she waited, she kept fidgeting with her chest and chatting up the pixies in the garden like they were old friends. Neato hears her words and immediately clocks it. She never slipped past the castle walls. Not once, because she wasn't allowed outside. He finally gets it. She wasn't judging him at all. She was terrified of the outside world and everyone in it, just like he was, brand new to this wild place. After a while, a blinding burst of light suddenly roared deep inside the forest, and at the same time Neato charged the little green goblin head-on, trading blows in brutal hand-to-hand combat. After what felt like forever, Neato and Toa finally burst out at the forest's edge, and dead demons lay all around them. Neato immediately declared it was more than enough to cover the inn. The girl yanked the goblin's teeth from its jaw and stuffed everyone into a bag. Neato grilled the toe, asking if that monster's body really didn't dissolve after the kill just stayed, rotted, and stuck around. And the toe admitted he truly believed that once you die, corpses vanish from this world. The girl snapped back that this only happens inside dungeons. Outside, the monster bodies just stay put on the ground, and then she shot down the idea, saying goblins are monsters, not Mammon. Neato immediately pressed, asking whether Mammon and goblins are really any different. Toa told him that Mammons are smart enough to talk like humans, but monsters are totally different beasts. Then Neato remembered the Serpent Lord's servant and realized the truth back then. He wasn't a monster at all. He was a Mammon because he could speak human words with zero trouble. After a while, Neato and Toa finally sprint back to the Adventurers Guild to finish the job. The front desk girl said she was locking in Neato's quest to wipe out 10 goblins, then slid his reward right into his hands. The young man spots the toe slumped beside him, yawning in that awkward way, and when he turns back, he tells her, "That was brutally tiring. Let's find an inn and get some rest." The receptionist slides a city map toward Neato and Toa and tells them right on the spot that if they're hunting for a hotel, she'll point them to a few good places. Neato thanks her for it. Then out of nowhere, someone steps up to Toa and calls her young lady. A sharply dressed man stepped forward, pressed his hand to his chest, bowed low, and then asked politely but boldly if he could learn her name. Nita stood between them, swallowed her pride, and apologized, insisting the girl was with him for the trip. Then the man snapped at the boy with raw, boiling anger. He told me he'd never seen him around here, then shot a question. "So, are you an adventurer?" Neato nodded and said, "Yeah, and today's the first day I've ever tried." The man smooths his hair, and the moment he learns the kid in front of him is a total newbie, everything clicks. Like, of course he wouldn't know him. He lifts his chin with swagger and demands Neato explain whether they really launched their careers by wiping out some pathetic little goblins, while Neato can't help wondering if all these people are just addicted to eavesdropping. Neato scratches his head and insists it's totally true, being an adventurer is brutal. Then the man presses him, asking why he's defending it, since low-ranking missions don't pay much at all. Neato lets out a tired sigh. This guy won't quit, so he shrugs and tells him it's nothing. There's no reason to worry, but the man snaps back that he wasn't talking to him at all. He was talking to the lady beside him, and then he growls at the young man to shut up. He keeps pushing the point if Toe comes with him, then goblins won't be the only threat. He shrugs off, because wolves, giant snakes, and maybe even grizzlies won't stand a chance either. He also claims he was there at noon when Neato and Tilla snapped at some guy. Then he leans in and tells everyone Neato's a healer, asking, "Am I right?" He lays it out. Neato's journey looks like it died before it even started, so he's convinced the kid will end up parked in some bargain hotel. He then slaps his hand onto Toe's shoulder and asks if she'll go with him, promising he can give her far more, and in his mind, he'll satisfy her way better than this guy. Neato squints and goes, "There's a message buried in what this guy just said," but then he forces himself to breathe. No need to freak out. He pushes the urgency on Toa, but the girl barely flinches, like his words just slide right past her. Without warning, she snaps her hand up and unleashes a surge of light magic straight into that vile man. After a while, the blow slammed him into unconsciousness, scorched clothes, hair standing on end, while everyone nearby stared in stunned disbelief. She shot him a look so disgusted it practically burned. The young man shouts for her, and she instantly whips around to face him. She grabs his hand and yanks him along. Come on, come on, follow me, while the man sprawls unconscious on the floor. She sprinted through the city's tight streets, and Neato barreled after her, begging her to at least stop for a second. Suddenly, the girl snapped to a stop. She demanded to know why Neato stayed silent to that guy he could have answered back, especially since he's the strong one. Neato asked why, and the man just shrugged, I know you don't need to worry about him. So Neato cut him off, ignored him completely, and dodged that whole unnecessary mess. He also says you should dodge nasty situations whenever you can. Toa clutched the edge of her skirt, spun around, and snapped that Neato had no business dwelling on thoughts like that. She kept screaming that the boy wasn't even hurt because he'd laughed at what that man said. Then Toe stammered that it was still awkward and really uncomfortable. Neato stared down at himself, furious and hurting like crazy, but going so straight at the problem felt like it would backfire. Tilla still poured her magic into helping him, even though they'd only just met and barely knew each other at all. He shot an apology at the girl, but as the words left his mouth, a fierce thought ripped through him, revenge isn't everything. Then he turned to the girl and thanked her for snapping at him. Neato promised that next time he'd actually try to get angry, but then remembered healers aren't meant to be that strong, so he swore he'd dodge those scenes and fix everything with his words. Instead, Tola wiped her tears and told him she got it, every bit of it. After everything finally simmered down, the girl snapped that this was exactly why he'd been raging for Masamune. Then Neato stared at her, desperate to figure out if she really understood a single thing from their whole conversation. Somehow, he managed to forge mysterious links across this world, and once his revenge is finished, Neato is going to step into a whole new life. He flips his whole mindset, and for himself and for the Toa, it feels like he's finally been saved for the first time. Later that night, Neato and Toa were tucked into a local spot, sitting under warm lights with a plate of sizzling meat, a steaming bowl of hot soup, and a crisp salad in front of them, while around them, voices traded praises for how delicious the meat tasted, and others swapped stories about monsters. Neato and Toa were chatting over food when Neato teased the girl, asking if she'd already tried every dish on the table. But Toa snapped back she was wrong. The girl had never tasted anything like this before. Nita stared in shock and blurted, "So what did she eat in that castle?" Tilla shrugged and said he couldn't remember because the girl just ate whatever they put in front of her. Then her mother leaned in and told her the truth. The food was made to crank up the girl's magical power levels. Neato felt his curiosity explode the more he dug into her, and he finally understood one thing: he'd have to reach the demon country, and Totoriki's home was tucked somewhere along the path. She devoured the food, grinning and swearing it'll make her way stronger than the meal she had before then. She immediately vowed she'd push hard to taste that delicious meat again. Naito lit up too, saying he was genuinely thrilled she loved it. He leans in and asks if she's up for another job tomorrow, hinting the reward might be bigger, and she doesn't hesitate, she's totally in. After dinner, To slipped into the bath like she had something to hide. Fresh out of the bathroom, Naito, still waiting, told Toa how insanely lucky they were to snag a room in that super popular hotel, and Toa totally nodded along. Neato drags the table over and declares he'll crash on the floor so Toa can have the bed. But she fires back, "Why can't you just sleep on the other side?" And Neato is completely thrown. The girl flopped onto the bed and told Neato to come too, warning him the floor would give him a cold. And the young man immediately stuttered, saying he twists and turns all night. She hugs her pillow, blows it up for comfort, and goes, "I don't care because I trust Masamune." And the boy immediately snaps, "Wait, what do you mean trusting him?" The girl snatches a blanket to cover herself, then stares at Neato still standing there and asks if he's really not going to sleep. But the young man tells her, yeah, he will. Tilla slid into the blankets and sent Neato a good night, and the young man, still stammering, scrambled to copy her, mumbling his own goodnight back. Deep into the night, Neato jolted awake. He realized sleep just wouldn't come. Toa spun toward him and asked, "Are you asleep?" Neato shot back, "No, I just woke up." Toa kept talking, insisting that she'd been trapped alone in that castle since day one. Her parents only stumbled back home after dark, and her sister never came home at all. The only ones she could talk to were those pixies, and day after day, loneliness swallowed her whole. But now loneliness is gone for good. Neato is right beside her. She spins to Nita's back and wraps her arms around him, whispering a sweet goodnight. Then the young man finally settles down, returns the same wish to Toe, and drifts off to sleep. Next morning, a loud knock slammed on Nita's door. He stumbles out, looking half asleep, and asks Shara what she needs this morning, only for her to tell him it's already midday. Neato demands to know how she tracked him down, and Shara answers, "The guild told me." She admits she figured the girl just wanted to teach the boy fencing. From inside the room, his voice suddenly cut through, and I asked what the hell was going on. He whips around to announce that Shira has finally arrived, but just as the words hit his tongue, he spots the Toe caught in revealing clothes. He started rubbing his hands and demanded why the girl was dressed like that, but she shrugged and said it was hot at night. Meanwhile, Cheryl's rage exploded, and she tore Neato into a full scolding. Every room in the hotel was roaring with chaos. Toa snapped, asking Masamune what he was up to. Masamune scrambled for excuses, trying to tell Shara it was just a misunderstanding, but Shara raised her light and Neato lunged in to stop her. Shara blurted out that she was truly sorry, then admitted she jumped to conclusions earlier and asked forgiveness because she couldn't help wondering why the knights in this country solve everything with force. Nato yells at Toa to stop. No matter how hard they hit him, it won't take away anything at all. Shara shoots back, "What are you talking about?" The girl then blurted that earlier she'd heard Toa yell, "Neato?" and "Masamune," and she shuddered hard as the shock hit. The boy insisted Nita was just a pseudonym, but the second he stepped out in public, he demanded everyone call him Nita, and Shara instantly agreed. Neato feared Toa might blurt out his real name by accident, so he figured he'd have to pull her aside and make her promise to be careful around people. Shara blurts that Masamune is a wild, unusual name, and insists it isn't his Gikoku name either, so Neato presses her again and demands to know what it is. The girl swears she's heard a wild rumor that this country sits on the far side of the Vanum continent, and that folks there even use names that sound like Neato. Then the boy realizes he has no choice but to go there himself. Then the girl leaned in and asked if he had anything planned today because she was already picturing herself teaching him fencing. That young guy told the guild, "I'm taking the quest, I need that money, no questions." The girl leans in and asks, "Can I go with Neato and Toa?" She promises she can help if they bring her along. They'll get permission for a tougher job, and the payout will be way bigger. Neato tells the girl she can join if she wants. Shara snaps at them to hurry up. In the Adventurers Guild, Shara finally cracked it. Your rank isn't random, it's earned, climbing from F class all the way up to the terrifying SSS. Right now, Naito and Toa are stuck with only E rank missions until Shara rolls in with them, and suddenly they can grab A rank requests or even something bigger. Naito asked Shira if she was an adventurer too, and she answered straight-faced that the knights in this country weren't just fighters, they were adventurers, through and through. And anyway, every knight across the whole country has to check in with the Adventurers Guild. So basically, no matter what, every knight becomes an adventurer. Neato blurts out whether it's even normal for Shara to pop up at the guild twice a week since the King's White Knights are meant to stay out of sight. Then Shara confirms it's true, even though almost nobody knows her real identity. She's a knight by title and an adventurer by heartbeat, ready to swing her sword and chase danger in the same breath. The crew marches up to the bulletin board and Shara blurts, "So what job do Neato and Toa want?" Then she freezes, because the board's stacked with tasks for Neato, like someone handpicked every single one just for him. Neato stares at the board and thinks, yeah, Shara can say whatever she wants, but the truth won't budge. He can't read a single thing, and it's not like he chose this either. Even that extermination gig with the goblins was handed to them by that receptionist girl. He stares at a picture of that monster and leans in, demanding to know what kind of beast it really is. Cheris leans in and says, "My name's Klein." Then the truth hits. He's a massive beast with 2 horns, living out deep in the forest. He decides to take the quest on the spot, and Shara tells him that once they're done, she's itching to swing by the shop across the street and hang out for a bit. Right after they finish checking out, Shara, Neato, and Toa step into the store, and the girl behind the counter freezes when she spots Shara's face, then blurts out, "Wait, are you really on your day off?" Then Neato bursts in, catches Shara's plan. She's taking everyone to the fishers to grab Klein, and decides she better load up on medicine from Catherine before they go. The young guy asks what she's talking about, and Shara snaps back that the medicine is the kind that shields his hearing. Since Klein's voice can shut down the body completely, they had to make sure they had that kind of measure ready. Right then, the shop assistant strides up, studies them, and blurts that she remembers Neato and that, with him, the paladin girl, Cheryl shocking her so hard she screams, "Tola really is a paladin!" The saleswoman's smile snapped, and she knew she'd messed up bad. After a bit, they finally reached the forest entrance. Shara pointed at Toa and shouted that he's a paladin again, and Neto couldn't help asking why that girl was so obsessed with him. Neato knew for sure she wasn't alone. Only one other person in the whole kingdom had that class. Even the Royal White Knights almost never got it. So the moment Itoha had it, it genuinely stunned her. Neto blurts out, "Is it really okay that you're telling me all this stuff so calmly?" Neato realizes giving this girl his real name was a total blunder. And by the time they catch their breath, they're getting swallowed deep in the forest. They stared at groups of people shredded by the damage, and Shara blurted, "Are you all right?" She stares them down and blurts, "So what happened to all these people?" One man swore they stormed into the forest to hunt orcs, and at first everything felt fine, like the forest was just the usual one. But then the goblins, orcs, and even the wolves bolted from this place like something truly terrifying chased them. He snapped that they had to bring it back right then because it was Klein. His group spotted him. But something felt off, so Neato demanded, "What do you mean by strange?" The man swore his whole body was glowing like a beacon, and the other guy snapped back that he'd seen normal clients before, but this one, no way. He was anything but normal. Shara drills the man about Klein in detail, and then blurts that he was coated in grains of light, like he saw it with her own eyes. The man just nods and says, "Yeah, that's what it looked like." And Shara's expression shifts in a flash. A blood-curdling scream ripped through the forest, and the wounded adventurers swore the monster had been stalking them the whole time. Right then, something monstrous tore out from behind the trees, and the air went cold. Shara barked at the battered adventurers that she'd stall him, so they had to sprint out of here right now. Suda grins and asks if it's really Klein, but Shara cracks open the bottle with shaking hands and snaps, "No, this isn't Klein." She tells him she's already explained gradations to that boy, and yeah, monsters have them too. Killing Klein is an A-rank quest because Klein himself is only a B-rank monster. Because a few individuals can make that special voice, and because they're downright ferocious, people call them nut Kleins. And they're locked in as a rank monsters. The monster standing right in front of them is the one whose quest is stamped with dangerous order. Shara leans in and asks Neato and Toa how they're really feeling. And when Neato says, "I'm fine," and Toa echoes the same answer, Shara's jaw drops in shock. She stares at her trembling hands. Stunned, his voice throws her mana circulation into chaos, and her whole body gets completely disrupted. She remembers how Neato handled the bandit and promised that if anything went wrong, she could trust him with it, because even though she only saw him for a blink, she was completely blown away. Nita stared down the monster nut Klein, level 32, and instantly realized it was a piece of cake. Then he told Shara he got it all figured out and demanded she hand over everything to him. He leans in and tells Toe he's counting on her support, and Toe nods back, "I got you." Shara grips her sword with trembling hands and charges in to strike. She snaps out Ice Flash and with it, unleashes the great ice sword. She can't stop wondering if Newt Klein is vulnerable to weapons, so she decides to put that theory to the test right now. Suddenly, the attack crashes and leaves no trace on the monster, and Shara rockets sideways to dodge the hit, just as it slams the girl with a vicious paw. But Shara snaps out of the way at the last second, sliding past the strike like a shadow. The monster barrels straight for the girl, but Toe has set a magic seal trap, so when it steps on the seal, the girl unleashes light magic and turns the attack back on it. The monster seems totally magic-proof, and Shara snaps that she heard the Nut Kleins toy with magic particles using their horns, while the Toe points out she can feel those magic particles buzzing in the air. Shara insists the first move is to smash his horns, then Neato suddenly spots a glow and screams for everyone to back up. Nut Klein slams down his spell and wipes out a massive chunk of the ground. Shara barely escaped in time, staring in shock at the magic light as it hovered over the dent the beam it shot left in the ground. Nut Klein starts shaking like a beast about to strike again, and the Toe throws herself forward, yelling that she won't let it happen. Then she unleashes an absolutely brutal spell. Shara locks in and realizes it's dual magic. Then the Toe blurts the spell's name and screams, "Howl of Light." The moment she speaks, the seals she just forged explode with a massive beam of light. The monster slams the toe's attack right to a stop. No, it crushes it completely. The girl blurts out that there's no way Shara's shaking hard, as she realizes that all this time, they still haven't even managed to hurt him. Then Neato finally gets it raw. Brute force won't fix everything. If Nutcline's controlling those magic particles, then his attacks hit with a magical edge. So I know there's a catch to his invulnerability, like he's using some kind of soul destroyer trick. Neato tells Shara that when the beam fired, a chunk of the light around Nutcline vanished. Then, once he opens it again, Shara fires back. What happens if Neato gets hit by accident? Neato tells them that if that's the case, he'll go solo. Then Shara steps in and insists she'll be the decoy. The young man brushes it off, says it's all good, and pushes for them to finish this fast. Before he even realizes it, he's suddenly standing right over the monster's head. He rips the world apart with soul rupture magic. Then he clamps onto Nutcline's horns, yanks them hard, and rips them straight out. The monster shrieks in wild, unbearable agony. Neato slammed the monster with ruthless pain. Now the young man boasts he's shattered its horns, and the beast can't defend against the girl's attacks anymore. Then he blurts that he wants to try something. Can I get it from you? Shara shrugs. Sure, I don't mind. He thanks her, like that settles everything. Then a wild shadow and eerie aura crawl over half his body, and he leans in to order Shara to keep everything she saw today locked down as a secret. After a while, someone in one of the castles finally blurted out the news. Klein had been spotted in the gloomy grove forest, ringed by glittering particles of light. The guy scribbling notes leaned in and pressed, "What are those light particles, and who's the informant?" The speaker said there were 4 adventurers, and they're wrecked, wounded to the bone, and right now they're stuck in the hospital. They're saying 3 more adventurers are in the middle of a brutal fight with the monster right now, a guy and 2 girls. One of the girls sported icy silver hair, and she fought with a razor-sharp rapier. Reinhard Rickman, the White Royal Knights leader, grabbed the cloak and ordered him to tell Reed and Hilda that Cheryl was out there battling Newt Klein right now. 2 days back, right when the whole village finally shut its doors for the night, the young man stared at Oliver's status. He was a fire mage, and even if Neato could steal elemental magic, he still wouldn't be able to cast it then. Out of nowhere, Neato gets a message. He clocks it and realizes this isn't just a situation, it's basically a full-blown quest. He rips open the letter and stares at what's inside. The message was all about his wife, Anna. Because of her, he rose into knighthood and earned a shot at leadership. But when he came back from battle, the truth hit like a blade. Anna had turned thief, and she was murdered during the robbery. Despair crashed over him, and people started laughing in his face, but Neato caught on fast. This message was tied directly to the king's murder. He slides the paper back into the envelope and stashes it in storage. And Neato can't stop wondering why that guy needs this order. There's still so much in the message he can't crack, until boom, his screen lights up. Hellfire has just been purchased. Neato couldn't believe how easy magic was to pick up. Then it hit him. He hadn't seen a spell like that before, so maybe it wasn't elemental at all. He slumped against the building wall, let out a heavy sigh, and muttered that he really, really hated healers. Then he can't help but wonder, could this spell be flipped and reversed? Fire's opposite is water. After all, Neato wastes no time and goes for his plan. A notification flashes on screen. Boom, and the god of vengeance's magic, inversion, gets activated. The magic hellfire gets transformed into a new power, bloody tears of the goddess. Meanwhile, Nutcline was writhing in unbearable pain. Then Neato felt it, like something inside him had snapped into a whole new form. Then snap, the sky cracked open out of nowhere, and Toa shouted for everyone to look up, and through that split, someone's hand shot through. Then boom, a giant girl's head with pitch black eyes surfaced right in front of them. The girl stared at Nutcline, and in that moment he was pinned inside a pillar of blinding light, trapped with no way out. Then the girl broke down and wept black tears when they splashed onto the monster. They tore apart a chunk of it like it couldn't survive the damage. Suddenly, the monster got hammered by black rain, each drop forged from the girl's tears. Cheryl's eyes went wide, fear slammed into her chest while the monster exploded out of that black liquid like it was bursting to escape. At last, there was barely anything left of that monster. The girl started fading away, and the very last tear in her eyes erupted into a flood of black liquid, annihilating that monster for good. Toa grabbed Neato and demanded, "Is this really the end?" And the kid just nodded, saying he believed it was. The black aura started fading off his body, and that weird gut-twisting feeling vanished too then. Out of nowhere, the distant thunder of horses' hooves crashed closer. The boy blurts that someone's on the way, and they have to vanish before they're spotted and caught. Then he tells Shara the rest is on her, because he can't afford to be seen. The girl blurts out what just happened, and Neato tells her, "Just give me everything. Tell me anything." He says he only showed her for one reason: he trusts her completely, so now she's the one who decides what to do with it. Neato tells the girl to meet him in the capital later, and he'll clue the innkeeper in about where to go, then she can get answers, and show up to Neato right after. Neato and Toa vanish out of nowhere. Shara's face twists with terror. She drops to the ground, and the only question pounding in her head is, who the hell is Masamune? Reinhard Rickman claims the intel he got points to Shara and her crew being somewhere close by. Royal White Knight Reed Black admits he hasn't had a real fight in ages, then swings toward Nut Klein with his scythe, hunting for the proper clash he's been craving. Royal White Knight Hilda Carlette stands there, slowly taking in the cruel, sarcastic words about her sister dying. Reinhardt suddenly feels something rip past him, snaps his head around, and Reed immediately blurts, "What the hell just happened?" Reinhardt glanced back and found no one following, then shrugged it off like nothing ever happened. After a bit, Reed stood beside this giant black pile, stared at it like it owed him answers, and snapped, "What the hell is this, and is Nut Klein actually supposed to be in here?" Reinhardt stared at the black pile, where a skeleton barely peeked through, and decided it had to be the Nut Klein until Reed erupted, yelling that Reinhardt couldn't possibly believe that, and the guy snapped back that they had no other leads anyway. Then he spotted Shara and demanded to know what went down here right away, asking if she had anything to do with it. The girl lay sprawled on the ground, passed out cold, while Hilda had already stormed up to her and demanded to know how she was feeling. Reinhardt says, "The info we got says there should be 2 more people here, 1 girl and 1 man. Shara snaps back, "They're not here." And Reinhardt leans in, demanding, "So what does this mean?" He claims you'll need at least 4 White Knights to take down Nut Klein, and he straight up refuses to believe Shara could finish him solo. The girl stays silent. Reed bursts into laughter and says it looks like Nut Klein already swallowed them, and with Shara's condition, he's pretty sure that's exactly what happened. Hilda snapped at Reed to shut his mouth right away, but he only kept laughing. Reinhardt let out a heavy sigh, told them he had to reach the night squad, and ordered everyone else to start packing. After a while, Reinhardt finally spoke up. He believed Shara had taken down Nut Klein, but with her condition so unstable, they couldn't verify it. He also insists they've got to wait for the final results, and Arnold Rathhausen, the king of Rathhausen, says he's got it all figured out and hands the whole thing over to Reinhardt with full trust. Reinhardt storms out of the king's office right as he steps into the hall. Daniel King, the king's White Knight, blocks his way. Daniel asks if Reinhardt has talked to the old eccentric, and Reinhardt fires back that Daniel's the eccentric. He bursts into laughter and shoots back, asking if the rumor about Nut Klein is really true. Then Reinhardt grins and says it's still under investigation, and Daniel presses for more, only for Reinhardt to shut it down with the same answer. Daniel throws his hands up and demands Reinhardt explain anything at all, but the kid just shrugs and admits he's just as clueless as he is. Cheryl's right there, so if Daniel's so curious, he should go ask her, and once Nut Klein gets opened, he'll get all the answers himself soon enough. Daniel grins, and Reinhardt can't figure out what's going on. Then the man drops the bomb. He's known Reinhardt for ages, and he starts probing whether anything at all felt suspicious back then. Reinhardt says the intel claims Nut Klein was fighting 3 people, but when they got there, the other 2 were already gone, so they only managed to find Shara. Reinhardt claims that the Nut Klein and basically his own corpse got wrecked so badly that Daniel will never know what really killed him, and that black blood is everywhere. Daniel realizes the answer to everything is going to drop from those twins. Reinhardt just shrugs and says, "Yeah, probably." Shara knows the whole truth, yet she stays silent for some reason, no explanations, no hints. Daniel then suggests Reinhardt can interrogate her, but the man shuts that idea down fast, saying he doesn't plan to dig up a truth she won't even touch. Daniel leans in and says that if those 2 can actually take down Nut Klein, then something's seriously off with them. Maybe they're just as strong or even stronger than Reinhardt's crew. Reinhardt backs it up, claiming they could be stronger still. Daniel bursts into loud laughter, shouting that it's just impossible, and then he fires off, asking if Reinhardt really claims those 2 are even stronger than him. The man just shrugs it off and says he has no idea. But if they threaten the country, Shara, who shields everyone, has to brace for whatever comes next. And he straight up wants to know, are they enemies or are they on our side? Meanwhile, the toe spits out a smug warning about the backlash to come and even snaps that healers shouldn't be using elemental magic at all. Then Neato declares that from this moment on, this power needs to be sealed away. Even with his bare hands, he shattered the Nutcline's horns with terrifying ease. Toa grabs Nito's hands and tells him everything's okay, because if he doesn't want to touch his powers, she'll unleash every last ability and shield him herself. Neato thanks her, then leans in and admits there's one question he's carried forever back when they first met. Why did she trust him? Tilla was moments from speaking when Shara suddenly snapped their focus away. The boy promises Toa that she'll spill everything next time, and Toa nods fully on board Shara, then asks if she ruined Toa and Nito's day, but Neato waves it off and says there's nothing to worry about, then even apologizes for dragging Shara all the way here. The girl warns Neato not to draw too much attention to himself today, so Neato shoots back. Why? The girl claims the White Knights snatched Nutcline, and she says nothing about Neato or the Toa, so for now they're in the clear, but she can't promise a thing, and Neato wastes no time thanking her for the help. Neato asks for a reward because their original job was just to take down a regular monster Klein, but Shara shuts it down, warning that going for it is a huge risk, since they could get spotted, so they'd better stick to this. Shara started grilling Neato with a question, but before she could even finish the sentence, someone suddenly popped up right next to them. The girl demanded, "Why are you here?" And the man grinned, because that power that turns a Nutcline into a farm, if you can wield something like that, you've got the coolest power on your hands. It was Reed Black because he stormed up asking who of the two had stolen his loot. As the wounded adventurers spilled every detail to the gatekeepers, the Royal White Knights snapped into action and stormed straight onto the battlefield. By the time they finally reached their destination, Nutcline's horns were already snapped, and all that was left of the monster was a slick pile of meat mush, while dark blood drenched everything in sight. Normally, Nutcline immune to magic can only be taken down with real physical attacks, but this whole disaster reeks of magic, and it's obvious. Usually nobody's strong enough to snap Nutcline's horns, they're rock hard. But that still doesn't add up no matter how you spin it. The way they kill is pure cruelty, because the battlefield gets left shredded and ruined. Reed couldn't brush off the fact that he just wiped out a sacred beast like it was some run-of-the-mill monster. Neato straight up says the Knights never trusted Shara from the very beginning, so they decided to tail her. Reed just calls it perfectly, like, Neato hit the nail right on the head. Shara burst into screams, insisting Neato and Toa were her friends, not enemies at all, while Reed cut her off, saying she didn't get to choose, then leapt into the air and declared that the call was his. Reinhard, still planted in his office, suddenly jerked his gaze to the window. Then he felt Reed's magic ripple through the air. He figured something big must have gone down. Right then, Toe burst in front of Neato just as Reed swung his blow. Reed froze, stunned. She caught it at the last second, and he demanded her name. She answered, Todorica. She's the one who killed Nutcline. Reed burst into laughter, looping the words, "I killed him," over and over like it was a victory chant. Then he sneered, saying he can't believe a woman could have made that kind of mess. He stares at Neato and tells him, "I still don't feel a single scrap of magic from this kid, but the toe she's overflowing with insane power." He lunges at the girl again, and this time his drive is even more ferocious. The girl insists she's fine, and Masamune better step in behind her. Reed suddenly closes the distance to her and shoots a question. Does the toe really have enough time to turn around? She blocks his strike with a sharp glare and fires back right on the spot. Reed says it's wild and way too close to someone who can wipe out Nutcline, but it's pointless because he slams his trump card first, using fire armor. He barrels straight for the toe and shouts that it's time to kick off the second round. He tells the Toa, don't assume this hit is going to play out the same way as last time. Suddenly, he reaches out and brushes the girl's face with his fingertips. Neato shouts to her, and the Toe insists she's totally fine. Then Reed steps in, asks what's wrong, and admits that with his simple sword, the girl can't drown out his sighs. So he orders the girl to unleash her magic and prove her real power. She just shrugs and insists, "This is everything I've got." Reed clicks his tongue, barks, and tells her, "If that's true, I'll end this right now." Right between them, Reinhardt suddenly materializes. He freezes both the toe strike and Reed's blast. At the exact same moment, Reed erupts in a scream, demanding to know why Reinhardt cut him off. Reinhardt declares the case is officially his, then leans in with a chilling glare and dares Reed, "So what do you think you're doing now?" Neato flings his healing aura over the injured Toa, then grins, saying he's lucky because not a single scar remains on his face while the girl beams, thanking him. He demands to know why she didn't unleash magic, especially since he's sure she'd never beat him. Then she snaps back that she can't, because if she used it, everything around them would have been wiped out. Reed declares that Toe is the one who murdered Nutklein, and Reinhardt snaps back, "So what? What's your point?" Then Reed erupts into wild screaming, demanding what's wrong with Reinhardt. Reinhardt fires back that Nutklein's death doesn't automatically make her an enemy of the Toe. She just smashed the monster the quest demanded. Reed demands to know why she bolted back then, saying, "If you ran, doesn't that scream you're hiding something?" Then he turns on Reinhardt and calls him downright stupid. Reed fires questions at Neato. Did he just use healing magic, and is he really a Reaper? Neato just smirks and tells him straight, he's a healer. Reed bursts into laughter and tells him there's no surprise he couldn't sense a thing from Neato because that kid is just another trash healer. Then Reed keeps laughing, like it's all a joke. He snaps around to Toa and hurls the truth her crew is nothing but useless trash. And Neato's mind instantly flashes to Sayakai because Reed feels just like him. Reinhardt turns his gaze on Neato, replaying Reed's words, how he couldn't feel a thing from this young man. He gapes at Neato and pure fear hits him hard because what he's seeing should not be possible. He can't even wrap his head around it. Then he whips his eyes back to Neato, but Reed cuts in and interrupts him. The man tells him, if Reinhardt's not going to handle this, then step aside and give the floor to someone who will. Reed shrugs and says, it doesn't matter if the opponent's a person or something else. When you spot strength, you strike first and erase them before they grow even more. He swings at Neato and the Toa, but then Reinhardt suddenly barks, stop, and throws the whole moment into chaos. Then boom, a massive explosion tears through everything out of nowhere. Dust swirled everywhere, choking the air, like the world had been left to rot. Reinhardt spots Neato still uninjured, while a battered, defeated Reed lies unconscious at his feet. Reinhardt leans in and declares, it all makes sense now Neato is the one who killed Nutklein, and right there they stand in the giant pit Neato carved. Sheena was screaming at Reinhardt, begging him not to lay a hand on Masamune. Reinhardt couldn't believe it. Taylor and Sheena were suddenly miles away, and that's when Neato pulled off two moves at once. He yanked the girls to safety and then slammed Reed with an attack. Shera demanded Reinhardt drop his sword because Masamune had only raised it to shield the Toa, and then Reinhardt finally realized he'd yanked his own blade out on pure instinct right when the explosion hit. He leans in, apologizes to Neato, and admits he was totally stunned. Neato demands to know if Reinhardt really knew from the start that he was the one who killed Nutklein, and the man snaps back that Reed told him she felt nothing from the boy. But here's the catch. It's impossible because magic wakes up in you from the moment you're born, and no matter how tiny it is, knights can still feel it crawling in anyone they meet. Reinhardt crouches in front of the boy, flips the script, and explains that there are rare exceptions when someone's magical power dwarfs your own. So yeah, Neato is sitting on a mountain of magic so massive that even Reinhardt and Reed can't spot a thing. Reinhardt jumps in, apologizing for the fact he couldn't stop Reed, and swears he'll own every consequence of his actions. Neato shrugs it off, saying it's fine, and they'll just move on like it never happened. He then shrugs and says they don't want to draw attention. He and the Toe just want to slam through regular guild quests, earn their rewards like any other adventurers, and live the quiet life. Reinhardt promises he'll make sure Neato and the Toe get rewarded for killing Nutklein, and he won't let a word about the Reed incident slip, but he still has to report to the king. Reinhardt tells them to spin it like Neato, and the Toe helps Shara wipe out Nutklein, and he pushes Neato to follow that lead. Neato buys in fast, trusts Reinhardt, and agrees the whole plan would be perfect. Reinhardt scoops up the unconscious Reed and snaps, it's time to go, then asks Masamune's name, throws out a sincere apology for the trouble, and tells them they'll meet again someday. After a while, Neato finally gets it. He pulled it off after all. Even if Toe had somehow held back the whole time, he still ruined everything because who would have guessed that one simple hit from him could make such a massive racket? He's praying they don't make him fix those blasted tiles. After a while, Daniel finally crosses paths with Reinhardt and blurts that today is packed with reports about this old, eccentric man, and then Reinhardt fires back, asking if Daniel managed to make sense of any of it. Daniel says that Nutcline was downright weird when they first dug it up. It barely looked like itself, so they had to wrestle with it for a while to slam the monster back into its original form. The wildest part is that Daniel is totally hollow inside. Reinhardt just has to ask what he means. Daniel says that when the autopsy team saw he was thinner than a normal Nutcline, they ripped it open and found no organs inside him at all, which is why the case screams the same brutal truth: he was dead from the very beginning. Reinhardt and Daniel are convinced someone's lurking off screen, yanking strings like a puppeteer to control everything. Daniel also insists that sacred animals have been twisted into mutated monsters, so he's never once heard of anyone who could control them. The man has no clue what the enemy is after, but his gut screams they won't stop at just this, so they need to push into this forest right now, before it's too late, and Reinhardt nods along. Reinhardt announces he's making Daniel the head of the research team, fires the question, can he handle it, and Daniel nods, I can. But right then Reinhardt gets hit with an unsettling, downright strange feeling. A shadowy threat is closing in on this kingdom, and nobody knows what it wants. Neato and Tola were flat broke, so when Shara swung them an invitation, they didn't hesitate, they jumped at it. So they ended up tearing their way into the Ikerworth family's ancestral estate. After a while, he finally plopped down at the table. Neato blurts that he finally clocked Shara as a noble girl, and Shara shoots back, all flustered, stop it, you're the real knight, I'm not a noble lady. The guy sitting beside him snapped his head toward the young man and admitted he never thought they'd cross paths this fast. Brown Eckhart, Shara's father, stepped up and said, Shara only talked about you last night, and now he just had to meet him at least once in his life. Shara's mom, Maria Akara-Werg, leaned in and asked, Masamune, is he really that strong? Then she nodded and said she'd heard he'd saved a kid from Tanya village. Neato whips around and Shara instantly looks away like she just got caught. The boys left wondering, for real, can she even stay quiet? Suddenly, the door bursts open, and Hilda, Shara's sister, storms into the dining room, announcing she's back home. Then her mother reveals the truth: Neato and Toa are their guests, the friends Shara brought in. Hilda introduces herself as Shara's older sister and gushes that she's thrilled to meet her. Then Neato's face erupts in a blush, and right away, he clocks Toa's eyes locked on him. Hilda shot Neato a grateful smile after he helped spread the word in Tanya village. She also drops the bomb that somehow this young man has saved her again today, so Neato scrambles to figure out if she really means Nutcline, and how she even knows it. Suddenly it hits him. This girl was the one who stood with Reinhardt when Neato and the Toho were hiding back at the scene of Nutcline's murder. Shara slams into the conversation and blurts that her sister Hilda is also a royal white knight just like her. Neato can't shake the thought, what if the royal white knights all spring from big noble bloodlines, like the Eckerwort family? Neato tells them both sisters fought for the country and wear the king's white knights. Yeah, he expected that. No doubt Hilda shrugs and says the White King just happened to have 2 empty seats waiting. Neato nods like he gets it, then fires off the question, can Shara and Hilda really be called heroes? Hilda tells us she, just like Shara, picked up fencing early and clawed her way into the kingdom's ranks as a knight. Then, years later, they finally got noticed and crowned as the White Royal Knights. But the commander of the White Knights has a totally different origin than Hilda and Shira, because the White King picked him personally when he was only 12. And that's why someone like Reinhardt isn't just talented, he's a real genius. The girl grins and declares that Masamune isn't just good, he's in a whole different league. The young man's face went red as he couldn't stop wondering just how much this girl really knew. Shara rockets up, slams to a stop in front of her sister, and yells for her to quit staring at him like that. Then she turns and snaps a warning to Neato to watch his step. Shara snaps that Hilda won't let a single man she's eyeing slip away. She's got the cold bite of a snake. Hilda bursts out that Shara's totally joking because she's the perfect older sister. Then she straight up asks, so is he your boyfriend? Shara snaps back that whether he's her boyfriend or not has absolutely nothing to do with it. Hilda grins and tells them she'll ask him straight, then turns to the boy and asks what he thinks about Shara. And right then the girl's face starts burning with embarrassment. The girl insists Shara and Neato aren't dating. Then Shara explodes, screaming, why are we even talking about this? Neato just smirks and thinks the truth is simple. They're only on good terms, nothing more. Suddenly, Toe slams a bottle of wine onto the table, and Neato can't believe he downed the whole thing. Then Toe whips around to Shara and drops that she needs to tell her something. She declares the Musamune is hers, and Neato explodes, screaming at Toa to stop. This thing is too dangerous, so she needs to sit down right now. He leans in and demands to know exactly how much she'd been drinking. Hilda bursts out laughing and says it looks like Shara just got herself a rival, and then the girl snaps back that this whole thing feels totally wrong right in the middle of everything. Tilla's knees buckle and she passes out, then Hilda grins right after it happens. After a little while, Neato finally tucks Toe into bed, and Shara leans in, praising her sister as the kindest soul around. Then she quickly apologizes for talking too much. The girl adds that when they first met, Toe somehow opened up only to Neato, like her heart just unlocked for him. The guy admits he hasn't dug into it yet, but he's definitely going to, because he's dying to know why too. He says he'll quiz Toe about it again, and Shara tells him, when Neato finds out, come tell me too, and the young man nods, agreeing. Then Shara swings open the door and shows Neato his room, and Neato shoots her a grateful thank you right on the spot. Then Shara leans in and asks if he's free tomorrow, because tomorrow she's going to teach him how to use a sword. Neato figured, no money means I grab a quest from the Adventurers Guild, but he's praying he can lean on Shara a little longer, so he nods and agrees to spend tomorrow under her supervision. The girl beamed and promised, see you tomorrow. Neato then noticed something wild. Shara could pull off some seriously hilarious, surprising facial expressions. Suddenly, Hilda creeps up on him and blurts out that he never saw it coming. Neato jerks back and demands to know why the girl is here, and Hilda shrugs she's just passing through. She leans in and demands, so was the boy really able to take down Reed? Neato answers that it sure looked that way the last time, and then Hilda presses, wait, is this really for a Toha? She swears she's heard everything, but one thing still bugs her. She can't figure out what kind of relationship Neato and Toa are really in. When you see her, it's crystal clear Kyo isn't indifferent to Neato, and Neato definitely isn't to Toa either. The young man's face heats up, and he blurts out that he didn't think it was that obvious. Hilda leans in and asks, so what if we take Cheryl with us? The girl blurts that this is the first time Cheryl's ever shown interest in a man, and the first time she's let someone familiar into the house. Hilda's voice drops, eyes heavy, she says. Cheryl's more serious than ever, and that everything's changed for good before. She barely let anyone near and always kept herself halfway out of reach. So when Neato's about to bolt from the kingdom, why not grab Shara and take her with him? Ever since she was a little kid, Shara only knew one path to sword, and by the time Hilda finally clocked it, Shara was already ruling the battlefield as a royal knight. And honestly, that's what makes it so heartbreaking, because the world is packed with more than just steel and swings. Neato claims he doesn't care, but Shara's not buying it. She's got real feelings about it. Hilda snaps that he shouldn't press her right now. He can ask her right before he leaves, and if he still says no, Shara won't hesitate. She'll take him by force. Hilda lets out a sad sigh and swears that one day she'll finally realize this was the best way, because everything about it was for her. Then they trade good nights, smiles lingering for a second, and split off in opposite directions. The very next morning, Masamune snaps his eyes open and feels something squirming right beside him. He spots Toa standing there and flashes him a bright smile, wishing the boy a good morning. The boy flashes her a quick good morning, then immediately demands why she's in his room, only for her to say that when she woke up, nobody was there. The girl stares at him and demands, are you really against this? And Masamune fires back, no, I'm not. Suddenly, Shura storms into the young man's room and blurts out that she heard him say something. Masamune shoots her a nervous smile and blurts out good morning, while a half-naked Toe, still somehow shameless, tosses Shara the same greeting. Shara tells Masamune, see, he's still a man, so what can you do? And demands he at least rein it in a little, while Hilda hangs outside the door, giggling to herself like she's watching the best show in town as she ushers the lost Toe into the room. After a while, Masamune threw himself into training and learned fencing from Shara. The girl snaps, it's way too early, but then asks why they don't just take a break. Then the boy grins. Honestly, that sounds perfect. Masamune still can't believe how brutal swordsmanship is. He thought he'd master it in a blink, but now he's left staring at the truth, wondering if he can even teach it at all. He leans in and asks Shara when she first started training with a sword, and she starts counting, right away says it was around age 3. Back then, she'd just be swinging a wooden blade. But the moment people realized she had real talent, everything flipped. Then he whips around to Toa and demands when she started sword training. She shakes her head and says she can't remember. But it was around the same age as Shara. She tells me that one day she got swallowed up in the forest by the castle, got attacked by a lion wolf, and just as things turned deadly, her father burst in and saved the little toe. Then her sword and magic training finally kicked off. Shara froze in shock and demanded again, was that girl really talking about that exact Leo wolf? Shara blurts that she's never seen it before, then says the Leo wolf is an S-rank monster. So she fires off a question, was Toa's dad really able to beat it? The girl nods and then drops the wildest part. Her father turned that Leo wolf into a stuffed animal. Masamune fires off a question. So is S-rank really stronger than that nut climb? And Shara, shaking with fear, blurts out that calling it stronger is basically saying nothing at all. She says they can only beat a single one of those Leo wolves if the royal knights and the adventurers join forces. The young man can't shake the feeling that running into that monster would be a terrible mistake. Masamune snaps the question. Has anyone in this country spotted the S monster? And has anyone ever fought it? Shara admits she doesn't know the full details, but she's heard the Royal White Knights have pulled raids like this before, so she thinks Reinhardt should have known. Shara tells Reinhardt he's the guild's #1, and when S-rank monsters show up, only special S-rank missions can stop them, so around Rodhausen, where things stay calm, you basically never get to see those missions. Sure, these missions are meant for S-rank fighters, but time and time again, someone with a lower rank still gets thrown into the battlefield, and every kind of monster has its own unique quirks that set it apart. Even monsters from the same species can shoot up to S rank or higher, just depending on how strong they are. Masamune makes it clear it all comes down to the monster's level. He can't stop thinking about that mimic, so what's it like at level 500, and what rank will it give him? Shara pauses, then snaps that if a monster that insane actually exists, it's beyond the whole ranking system, so Masamune leans in and asks what she means. Shara breaks it down. The guild ranks climb all the way to SSS, then beyond that lies an endless, infinite tier, not a real rank at all, just a measure of how totally unconfirmed the monsters are. Masamune straight up tells her level 500 isn't confirmed, which means it's basically an endless rank, and even if someone ever finds it, it'll still sit outside the whole rank system. It's like guild insurance, plain and simple, so Masamune presses Shara hard. Does she honestly believe that power level doesn't exist? She agrees, but then admits she can't fully deny it because if she ever ran into one of them, there's no way she could report him. She wouldn't survive the meeting in the first place. So the whole thing stays unconfirmed. Masamune can't stop thinking about how badly he wants to meet that mimic again. And now he's staring at this dungeon, trying to figure out what kind of trap it really is. He realizes he should have grilled Shaon about everything, because it feels like Shaon already knew the answer to half the world, and that kind of intel would have been pure gold for Masamune. After that talk, Masamune, Toa, and Shara hammered out training nonstop until evening. Then Toa hit her limit and said, "Okay, part 2. And that's when Masamune finally figured out how to wield a sword from the both of them. Suddenly, Masamune's dropped into a mystery. He's standing in a shattered temple with no idea how he got there, and he blurts that he was only supposed to sleep and share his own house. The young man was sure he'd died, then a voice behind him erupted, shouting, "We haven't seen each other in forever." Something lurks behind him, and right then he demands, "Why are you here?" Sean steadies Masamune, then slips him an order walk with me for a bit. They climb into a place no one has ever seen. Suddenly, a young man spots a stranger standing right in front of him, who immediately claims, "You've finally made it here." He whips around and declares that he was the one who dragged him into this world. Then Masamune fires back, asking who he is and whether he's Shaon's friend. The man smirks and says Masamune probably won't recognize him like this. Then he morphs again and blurts, "Do you recognize me now, Masamune?" And the kid instantly knows that voice. The young man remembers the day his journey began when they shoved him in a dungeon and told him to chug a bottle of weird, unknown liquid. Sean asked for permission to introduce his comrade, but before he could even say the name, everything moved too fast. Sean shrugs and agrees the man's got a point, then immediately steps in, apologizing like he's fixing a mistake. Masamune pushes again, asking why the guy won't introduce himself, and the truth hits even harder. He has no idea where he even is. So Masamune demands at least one shred of info, and the young man just shrugs it off, chalking it up to intuition. But he's convinced that guy is the god of vengeance because when he asked Shon about it, Shon's reaction totally gave it away. And then he realized Masamune had dropped his comrade's name like it meant something. The god of vengeance sneers that this place means nothing to Masamune, but then Sheon and the god of vengeance both treat it like some kind of prison. The god of vengeance swears his real body is right there on the bed, and that the thing he called the boy here for is basically his soul. Then he tells Masamune to wrap his mind around it like that. Masamune demands what the god of vengeance even means, and the man snaps back that the elixir the boy swallowed doesn't just heal, it links the god of vengeance to whoever drinks it. So he used that deadly connection to drag the boy here. Masamune snaps, "Wait just a minute," and demands to know what kind of elixir this is. The god of vengeance grins and reveals it was forged from his own blood, and one sip grants the drinker a truly unique power. It hands you a random power, but once you get it, it can scale to an infinite level, an unknown skill you can't even name. Still, among all those abilities, some are out of reach for the youth. The god of vengeance declares Masamune insanely lucky. He snagged an ability strong enough to take down Showan, and the worst part is Showan isn't even there to stop him. Masamune tells him, "Yeah, the powers I got back then helped me a ton, so I'm grateful." But the kid keeps pressing. "Then why did the god of vengeance pick you?" He snaps back that he didn't pick him at all. It could have been anyone standing there. He dropped the elixir there on a whim, just to test what would happen, and somehow Masamune stumbled right onto it. That young man can't stop thinking if he hadn't gotten lucky, the mimic would have torn him apart and left nothing but bones. The god of vengeance leans in and asks if they can finally jump to the main topic, and Masamune nods, then admits he just wants to crawl back to his bed as fast as possible. Shion steps up to him and declares that Masamune is about to unleash his swordsmanship, but Masamune just stands there, totally clueless. The young man blurts that he needs a break. He's already been fencing all day, so why should he keep training with two old guys in a place like this? Then he straight up asks if that's exactly why they dragged him here. The god of vengeance shuts him down. He can't say that, and he can't even explain why. Then he reveals the truth. Sheon is about to hand his sword skills to Masamune, and it'll all be over in a blink. Masamune claims the god of vengeance can't tell him a thing, and that might be why he can't even name the boy. The god of vengeance snaps back, "I can't tell you my name either." Masamune whips around to Shon and demands answers. Why is he here? Why didn't he die? And what the hell happened? But Shon shuts him down and says he can't tell him that. Masamune can't stop thinking. Every time the god of vengeance and Shaolin open their mouths, they shut down, swear they can't say a thing, and still mention that this place is a prison for them, and now the kid can't shake the feeling that it's all connected. Masamune claims he gets it all and won't ask a thing. Then Shaowan darts in with an apology while the god of vengeance smirks and swears the answer will come eventually, so there's no need to rush. Sheon leans in and declares that it's finally time to hand Masamune the swordsmanship he's mastered. Like your friend said, it'll all be over in an instant, he says. Then he snaps that the boy will still suffer the exact same agony as the elixir did, and Sean can't help asking if he'll be all right. He swears everything will be fine now that he's gotten stronger. No way it'll hurt like it did when he swallowed that elixir, and then Shallan clamps his giant hand around Masamune's head. Masamune felt it instantly. Something was off, and he snapped. Asking Cheyenne what he was doing to him, the man just grinned and said it meant the boy had finally agreed. Right before Masamune could even speak, a whole storm of wild sword-fighting moves started flashing inside his head. He couldn't stand it a second longer, dropped to his knees, then froze because the pain vanished like it never existed. Sean leaned in and asked the young man how he was doing. Then the kid said he had a few memories stuck in his head. Sean laid it out for everyone. There's a snake technique, a Beast King move, Greyberg-style Kenjutsu, an Emperor technique, Rento skills, a basilisk move, and tons more beyond that. Suddenly, the young man realizes there's one technique he still can't name, and Sean tells him it's his swordsmanship. With every style in his arsenal and all that hard-earned experience, he forges a skill so complete it has no weak points. He tells Masamune, "You'll need this later, so right now, grab it and don't say a word." And then the god of vengeance snaps, "Send it to Bayom." He tracks down a woman named Khalifa And the moment he finds her, he has to fire off one exact phrase. He'll be waiting for her on that hill. Masamune is completely lost about what's happening. But the god of vengeance keeps piling new tasks onto his to-do list. He tells her, keep asking questions, you'll get it, and then points her to the third drawer like Masamune does, and the boy nods along. He swears he just wants a normal adventure, but because he's in debt to the god of vengeance, the second he steps into that city, he'll do exactly what that god demands. The god of vengeance even shrugs that it's only a suggestion, but then demands he heads to school to learn magic. And the kid blurts, wait, are you really talking about magic? Masamune's a healer, but the god of vengeance scoffs and claims it won't stop him because once he digs into his studies, his knowledge will explode, and he'll soak up everything he needs to master his craft. Even with Masamune stuck using only healing and support magic, he can still grow his magic lineup because magic for him has no ceiling. Those words slammed into Masamune's head like a lifeline, pure salvation, and then he nodded, ready to do it. Sean steps up to the young man and tells him, straight up, that his snake sword can be handed to that demoness instead because this blade is special in a way that definitely won't fit him. Then he fires the question, how does the kid even know about the toe? And it gets worse, he swears they've been watching him the whole time. Suddenly, Masamune collapsed to the ground, his power draining away fast and his vision turned hazy and unfocused. The god of vengeance snapped that time had finally run out no matter how many times they tried. They couldn't summon him anymore, and he warned that this might be their final talk. So he demanded they track him down and come find him. Right now, in Roshausen's royal capital down in the old town, an anonymous figure stalked the streets like they owned the night. At the table, the man snapped, is that really Madame Fran here to see you? And then he gulped out, poor Fran. He even apologized for dragging her all this way just to meet him. She beams, thanking him for the invitation. Then he blurts the name of the man at the table, Guido Sador, who tells him, just call me Guido. And with that, he gestures to the girl beside him and introduces her as his assistant, Yoon Yi. The madam grins, saying, it's been ages, where have you been? Then checks on the girl's well-being. And Yoon Yi shoots back, I'm fine. The madam pulls her closer, murmuring, you're still as cold as ever, and that's exactly why I love you. Madame Fran wastes no time. She drills in and asks why Guido hauled her here. And Guido answers with a tight-lipped, there's just one little problem. Madame Fran's spirit beast gets wiped out and turns to dead weight, totally useless. Then she snaps and demands how many of the White King's knights bit the dust. And Guido answers cold. Nobody died battling it. He chews on his nail and blurts out the truth. An unknown traveler intercepted the beast. And when the Knights of the White King finally showed up, the beast's spirit was already soaked in blood. Madame Fran leans in and asks if that beast spirit was truly dripping in blood, because that bloody wording is wildly, painfully unusual. Guido tells everyone he's got to grab the corpse the Ototsi team snatched, so he slips a small object out, demands Madame fire her magic again, and tries to bring those two beasts back to life. Madame nods, says she finally understands what Guido's trying to say, and then offers him the item she just pulled out. Guido stares at the massive flask and blurts, what the heck is that? Madame says the second she got Guido's invitation, she already knew what he was going to ask for, so she handed over the perfect gift for him. The young man leans in and asks what's inside the flask, and Madame Fran snaps back that it's packed with an entire army of monsters. Guido flashes a grin from ear to ear, calling it absolutely wonderful. And Madame Fran beams that her gift finally hit the mark. Then she leans in and makes it clear every monster inside is B rank or higher. She sizes up the S rank monsters and starts thinking Guido might actually need them. Then Madame leans in and tells her the truth. She grabbed a bunch of lab resources when she fled the Empire, and she managed to claw back only a small piece of what she'd taken. Fran leans in and demands when Guido will strike again. He smirks and says, give it a week. Then he insists Madame Fran herself raise the perfume supply as high as it'll possibly go. Once Madame Fran stormed out of the negotiation site, Yoon shook her head and admitted she didn't think her gift would matter much. Guido said this gift would be their safety net because the traveler who handled the last creature could step in again and wreck their plans. Next morning, Masamune snapped awake with the God of Vengeance's warning burning in his mind, find those words for the young man. Toa was busy munching on meat, and it threw his mind off. Then the girl leaned in and asked the boy what was wrong. She said the boy had just blurted something out. Yet Masamune shot back that nothing like that ever happened. Shara noticed Masamune was deathly pale, and the girl blurted out, "Are you okay?" But the boy just shrugged and said he felt exactly the same as always. The girl blurts, "Are you sure?" Because the boy was just standing there watching a fencing match, and Tilla chips in that he didn't even lift a sword. Shara leaned in and said Masamune might have lost the spark for training, but Masamune shot back that he was still loving every session and he could feel himself getting better. He tells you, "Today, I'm not chasing anything, I just want to get out there and see this city with my own eyes." He tells the girls to stop fretting and not overthink it. Truth is, he couldn't shut his brain off after what went down last night. Too much had happened, and it stole his focus from everything else. When he watched Shara and To's training god duke it out, it hit him hard like the fight was playing in slow motion, and he could see every move coming before it even happened. So yeah, last night wasn't some silly dream. If he'd picked up a sword this morning, he wouldn't have done the same thing as yesterday, and the girls would have started grilling him for answers. Masamune scrambles for an excuse to dodge tomorrow's training. Then Bam To cuts in, pointing out the window and firing, "Wait, what is that?" Outside the window, a giant man stalked down the street, yanking a tiny child behind him, ears and a tail flared like some wild creature. Shara blurts out an apology for interrupting them, but the girl snaps, "Forget it, come on! We have to follow this man right now. This person is most likely the traitor slipping around with prohibited goods." The man yanks the beast man and hurls him to the ground, then snarls that the girl has to be thrown into the cage right now. The guy beside him tells him the beast man would fetch a fortune. The man warns him, "Don't you dare mess up the merch." Then they shove the beast man into a cage, order her to sit tight and be good, and tell her to keep the noise down. He licks the blade and warns the beastman she'd better not let them carve up her ears, so the beastman immediately curls into a tiny ball, bursts into tears, and screams for his sister to come save him. Suddenly, more and more people crowd in around her, staring like they just hit jackpot, praising her like, "What a great catch today." Then someone leans in and whispers that spotting a whole race of white cats is wildly unusual. And then someone goes, "You know that beast girl from the other day? This one is on a whole different level, way better." The guy says, "Our boss is gone right now," then leans into the second man and goes, "Hey, why don't we mess around with her for a bit while she's away?" He tells them the boss won't even notice if they hurt her, and the other guy snaps back that it's a brilliant idea like he's been holding in stress for days. Then the man throws the door open and yells for the beast girl to come over. He tells her to stay perfectly still. It'll be over before you know it. The beast man starts to thrash, but he slams him down with one calm promise. "Don't worry, there's nothing to be scared of." The second one fires off, telling the man to hurry, because their boss could come back any minute. Suddenly, one of the men let out a choking gasp, and then he launched across the room, smashing through the boxes stacked there. Masamune dropped his hands and said he figured this was all they needed just to pass out. The beast man stared at the young newcomer, eyes blazing with awe. He whips around to her and blurts, "Are you okay?" Then admits he caught sight of her getting dragged here by accident, and he came charging in to save her. He reaches out to her, tells her to breathe because he won't lay a finger on her, and then pushes to get the girl out of there. After a while, Masamune and the girl stepped outside, and right away, Toa and Shara showed up, with the girl waving at him. The beast girl grilled Masamune, and the boy shrugged, "That's my name." Then he pointed at her and demanded, "So what's yours?" She smiled and said, "Nemu." Shara stepped on up to her, beamed that it was great to meet Nemu, and introduced herself, "I'm Shara." Then the girl leaned in and asked where her home was, and the little girl answered, "My home is wherever my sister is." Shara said she understood everything, and like he suspected, this place was a church. Toa demanded what she meant by church, and Shara broke it down. It was basically an orphanage, a spot where kids got temporary shelter and care. When they finally reached one of the orphanages, Shara blurted out that Nemu must have been one of their kids, and Masamune glanced around. This place didn't feel like a church at all. It looked more like some abandoned old mansion. Nemu swings the door open and freezes. There's a maid standing right there. The woman shrieks, yells for her sister, and dashes straight into her arms. The girl starts grilling everyone about where Nemu vanished to because her sister is freaking out. Then she breaks down, apologizes, admits a terrifying man caught her, and says Masamune swooped in and saved her. The sister whips her gaze toward everyone streaming into the church. Sometime later, while they sat at the table sipping tea, Shara leaned in and told her sister everything that had happened. The woman thanked them for saving Nemu and confessed she had no idea how to repay them, while Shara leaned in and told her sister not to sweat it because they were already happy as long as Nemu was okay. The woman says Nemu slips out sometimes to visit her friends in secret because the royal capital is pretty safe, and beastmen don't get discriminated against there, so she figured there was nothing at all to worry about. Her face went ghost white as she admitted she'd been wrong. Nemu really had been snatched by traders dealing in prohibited goods, even though that stuff was supposed to be off limits. Masamune pressed Chara for what the ban was. She admitted she'd left that part out, then snapped that in Razhausen slave trading is forbidden, and kidnapping people is off limits too. And yeah, this is a fact, but somehow, some people still pull shady moves in secret, out of sight. If Toe hadn't clocked the kidnapping in time, Nemu's fate would have taken a brutal, totally different turn. Suddenly, Masamune spots something on Nemu's left hand and blurts, "Does your sister know what that is?" And the girl stares straight ahead, terror frozen on her face. Nemu's sister yanks up the sleeve of her sweater, then breaks down in terrified sobs, insisting this just can't be happening. Shura insists this drawing isn't just art, it's a slave comb, a herm that traders would slap onto their goods. A slave's comb isn't just a trinket, it's proof that someone's been owned like property. It's pretty common for male subordinates to carry one, but Nemu's got that crest for a reason. She's a full-on beastman beast. That comb doesn't do anything flashy, but once someone gets it, they refuse to run, like it locks them in place. It feels less like an item and more like a chain for the mind, screaming, "You're someone else's." Masamune can't stop wondering how many lives did those merchants really tear apart. He let Shara take the lead, but when it came down to it, he wiped every last one of them out on the spot. Suddenly, Toe yanks the boy out of panic, asks if he's okay, and points out he just pulled the scariest face ever, while Shara tells Masamune not to worry and to save the rest for later. The girl insisted she'd already reached Annette, and the young man told her to breathe easy, everything would be fine. Just as Masamune and the girls were ready to head out, Nemu and her sister burst outside to make sure everything was okay. Masamune slid into the seat beside Nemu, told her to stay sharp for now, begged her not to wander out alone again, then said his goodbyes, swearing he'd come back tomorrow. Toa grilled Masamune, asking if he was really set to see Nemu again tomorrow, because when they split up, he swore he'd come back to her then. He flashed a smile and told him she was out there laughing with the other kids like nothing ever happened, so he was convinced that when tomorrow hit, she'd completely forget about him. Next morning, Nemu beamed and sprinted straight to Masamune, calling him master with pure joy, and when he asked why she'd come, she said she was here to see the master. Nemu slipped back into master mode and hurriedly asked Masamune where they were going, and the boy shot back that they were headed straight for the guild. Masamune is bunking at Shara's place, but he won't just coast there. He has to earn his own cash. Period. Nemu blurts out that, of course, like a real master, he's an adventurer through and through. Then she fires off, "I'm coming too." Suddenly, Masamune rips out a shout, calling straight to Toa. Toa and Shara just stared, dead serious, at the young man. Then Toa blurted out that she suddenly couldn't figure out why Nemu called him master. Masamune snapped into a full-on scream at the girls, demanding they listen because, in his mind, he never told her to call herself that. Toad narrowed her eyes and pressed, "Is that really true?" Then the girl whips around to the Beast Girl and asks why she calls Masamune master, and the Beast Girl explains that her mother taught her that word. The woman insists that if someone saves your life, you owe them love for the rest of your days, and Nemu swears it's true, because the master saved her, so that makes him her master forever. Tilla snapped back that if Nemu said it, she'd have to believe it then out of nowhere. A merchant she recognized hurried over and demanded whether these guys really knew Nemu. The Beast Girl bursts into screams and, grinning like she's thrilled, introduces the merchant Masamune, claiming this young man is Master Nemu. Then the woman's face twists into something wild, and Masamune instantly realizes this is going off the rails. After a bit, Masamune, Toa, and Shara finally told the merchant everything about what happened to Nemu, and she stared at the woman's hand like she could see the pain herself, then said she understood it all, and that it had to be brutally cruel. She gently pats Nemu's head and beams, saying she's over the moon that Masamune and the girls managed to save this sweet little kid, because Nemu's always in her shop. She's basically treated her like family, like a daughter. The woman admits that if she could, she'd swing on every person who dared hurt little Nemu, but she can't shake it because she still can't believe the day of farewell is already here. The woman tells Masamune that Nemu has picked him as her master, so he'd better not fail her. And if anything goes wrong with Nemu, she'll drop everything and come wreck him. Masamune can't stop wondering if there's some bigger meaning behind him being Nima's master. Then Nima's girl strides up to a woman named Sharon, blurts that she's terrifying, and Sharon just tells her, "Yeah, that's what parents do." Then a man bursts into the shop and demands, "I've been looking all over for Shara." The girl spots him instantly. Edward, and she tells him she can still see him wearing that same face out in public. Then she presses, "So do you really even care?" Edward smirks and says nobody would ever guess he's one of the White King's knights. He just looks completely ordinary. Then Edward turns away, locks eyes on Masamune and Toa, and asks who those people are besides Shara, so the girl steps in and names Masamune, Toa, and Nemo. And Edward immediately presses if they really are the ones everyone's whispering about as the White Knights. He snatches off his hat and bows hard, apologizing for the late intro, then introduces himself as Edward Scotch, one of the White King's knights, and he says he's thrilled to meet you. Then Shura leans in and demands to know why he was hunting for her. The man snatches out a roll of paper and blurts that it's a message from Reinhardt. Then Shura rips it open, and her eyes can't process what she's seeing. Edward tells everyone the king demanded it, then boom, a basilisk has shown up in Vic, and it's only getting worse. Edward leans in and tells Shara that a basilisk suddenly crawled into a barn owned by Boreas, one of the friends of His Majesty. Tella pings her about the basilisk, and Nemu snaps back that she knows all about them too, then describes it like a colossal snake. Shara demands to know why she was given the order. Edward just shakes his head and says he has no clue. He only got one job, hand her the written order. And as for the rest, he's convinced His Majesty picked Shara for a reason only he can see. Then he suddenly barges into the conversation and straight up asks Shara for a favor right there in the middle of it. She blurts that she needs the basilisk's tear glands and venom sac plus big fangs because she's got none of it herself. And she even asks them to grab everything for her right after they kill the basilisk. Masamune tells Shara he'll join the mission, and if the kid's in, then Toe's going too. The girl leans in asking, "Will everything really be okay?" The boy tells her, "It's time we pay you back for letting us stay." And the Toe chimes in, "It's fine, no worries." The woman offers to take Nemu with her, but Masamune shuts it down, saying she's still just a child. The girl immediately breaks down in tears, insisting the master isn't going to abandon Nemu. The boy drops to his knees and declares they're about to take on an evil monster, then asks the girl if she gets it. Nemu nods and says she just wants to be useful to her master. The woman tells the boy, "Don't panic. Yeah, I look scary, but Nemu's a healer, and she's way stronger than Masamune." The boy can't shake it, though, because Nemu was just hauled off by traitors not long ago. He locks eyes with the little beast girl's sad gaze and tells her, "You can do this just this once." After a while, Masamune's crew crammed into a carriage to handle their next job, while Shara fumed, snapping that the king was nothing but a cold, greedy exploiter. The king dispatched her to hunt down a common basilisk, yet instead of grabbing someone from the guild, he routed the whole request through it, and somehow the girl couldn't see any reason to go herself. Masamune snapped at the girl to calm down, telling her to treat this like a favor for Sharon, but even he can't figure out why Cheryl is freaking out so badly. Then Toe cut in out of nowhere and grilled Nemu, what can the beast girl actually do, and can she use magic? The girl shoots back, "I can't use magic, but I can make a cat fist." Masamune presses, "What is that?" And the girl's stunned. He has zero clue what she's talking about. The girl springs out of her seat and declares that Nemu will explain it to the master, something about a cat's fist. But as soon as the words start coming out, she freezes, realizing she has no clue what she's talking about. Nemu tells Masamune, "All I know is this beastman fighting art was handed down to the cats." And Masamune's like, "Yeah, but what is it really?" Then Shira steps in and explains the truth. Beastman martial arts are exactly what beastmen master. She adds that every beastman species fights with its own martial style, and back in Nemu's homeland, that style is called the Catfish. Masamune immediately gets it. This isn't just tradition, it's a real combat technique. Masamune quizzes Nemui, then leans in and presses Nemu. about whether she truly can't cast magic while Nemu insists she can't, even though she's literally a magical cat. And if someone teaches her magic, she can use it. Shara's stunned. If a cat human can sling magic, then this must be a rare, elite kind of cat people. And the girl claims it's an innate class ranked among the very highest. Masamune pushes the question, if beastmen have a birth class, could they swap into a non-birth one? Shara leans in and says some classes don't care about labels. They grow stronger as they age. She tells him, I was just an ordinary knight, but now I'm an elite knight. The boy asks, so I can really become a cleric after I become a healer? And Shara shoots him an apologetic look because she insists it's impossible. Clerics are an innate class. She insists that the development paths for almost every class are already mapped out. But then she drops the bomb: the healer class, at least as far as she knows, hasn't been developed yet. Masamune realizes he's stuck being a healer for life, and Nemu shoots back, asking if her master is really one. He answers that it's true, and that's why he only ever fights with healing and support magic. Nemu shoots her hand up, tells the master not to fall into sadness because she'll protect him, and the master answers by saving her so he can't be weak when it matters. Nemu demands to know when they'll finally hit Vic, and Shara admits they won't get there until tomorrow, meaning they're stuck sleeping the night in the carriage. And Masamune's shocked to realize the road is way farther than he ever imagined, because Vic is insanely far off. Masamune shot a quick question. Was it really okay to ditch the capital? Shara grinned and said yes, because Edward would go tell everyone up there, and she'd already filled Annette in too, just in case. Masamune can't believe what just happened. When did she pull it off? He even saw that girl chatting with the ring just yesterday. He demands to know if Shara's ring can truly talk from far away, and she proudly flashes it. Yep, it really does, because every royal white knight gets one of these rings. The young man tells him, I've got one too, and then admits he snatched it from someone, never even used it. Still, that ring is a lifesaver, letting him reach others even when miles are standing between them. Shara snaps back, saying her ring only works inside the kingdom, while Masamune's can work anywhere beyond it. Then he fires off the clincher. The one who handed it to him swore that's exactly how it works. She stares at the ring, gasps, and says it's insanely expensive, made with the purest materials money can buy. Toa demands who slipped that ring onto Masamune, and the kid blurts that he only saw the guy for a second, then the attacker suddenly struck. Masamune fought back, and the man immediately switched gears, offering to become his comrade. The young man claims that the second the man laid eyes on him, his aura turned hostile, and just as he thought it was done, his magic slammed down, stopping Masamune from escaping. He also told me he was tied to this secret organization, dangled an invitation for me to join, urged me to think it over, and then hit me with a call right after. Shara said it all smelled way too suspicious, then snapped, Did the mystery person give you the organization's name? Masamune paused, and when he finally answered, it was called Dragonheart. Shara shuddered, completely stunned. Shara demanded proof that the stranger really said it, and Masamune pressed her for anything she knew about that organization, only for the girl to shrug and say she figured everyone already did. The Dragonheart has a deadly reputation for tracking down politicians, so many of them, the powerful ones caught stealing, murdering, and doing worse, ended up dead, and now almost every country has slapped a massive bounty on their heads. Masamune remembers the stranger hinting about wrecking the Rotten Top, and Shara instantly says it was probably them. Then she tells the whole story of how the incident in the kingdom of Tuaron turned the Dragonheart into a world-famous legend. Queen Priva, the ruler of Tuarant, unleashed a horrifying mass genocide because she chased a fantasy of a beautiful kingdom, cutting down more than half her people, with most of the victims being the elderly. Masamune blurts out, that's why the Dragonheart crew went after her. Shura nods and says, yeah, that's the reason, but they didn't stop at Queen Priva. They wiped out everyone tied to her, and even kids were among the bodies. Masamune then snaps, so does Tilla know about this? The girl said she had heard of it, but not nearly as much as Shara because she accidentally caught her parents whispering about a friend named Carpenter, the guy who built the Dragonheart organization. Now Shara fires questions at Masamune and grills him about this mysterious newcomer, and the young man just shrugs, saying he still doesn't know yet. He has no clue when they'll cross paths again, but honestly, it doesn't even matter. There's no point spiraling about it when they can't even find this organization yet, and still it's wild that they got invited by them in the first place. Masamune remembers the three were supposed to head to Greyberg, so why are they there now? At that moment, right by the Greyberg border, the guards spotted three strangers and barked, "Stop," before yanking their hoods off. These three were the first faces to meet Masamune at the start of his journey, and yeah, they all belong to the Dragonheart organization. Greyberg is a giant kingdom stretching for miles, and as soon as you reach its gates, you hit a checkpoint, then another one stands right before the main castle grounds. Beyond the city, a whole ring of villages clings to the castle's protection, plus extra checkpoints at every turn, so nobody could slip into the kingdom without getting spotted. One of the strangers who just disarmed the guards yanks off his hood, turns to his partner, and declares, "You were right, these gates are barely guarded. Some people insist hardly anyone dares to go through here, and if they do, it's usually merchants or travelers hunting their next move." The girl snaps that 2 guards aren't nearly enough, and the man fires back that they're probably all stuck out there battling demons. Last time, the streets were packed with guards then, right behind the 3 strangers. Thunder of horse hooves crashed through the air. In the end, they got outsmarted, sharply encircled, and completely surrounded. Out of nowhere, a horse and its rider thunder up to the strangers, telling them the knights closing in on the trio stand no chance, and it's time to retreat. An old man with a long, wild beard stood there like a legend, and he promised he'd handle the uninvited guests himself. One intruder slaps the air with familiarity, calling the older man Grandpa, and the man shoots back that it's been ages since he and Alfred last saw each other, telling him he's just glad to find him still alive and doing just fine. But then he realizes this young man is about to team up with the scoundrel lurking right there, and His Highness is going to be devastated when he hears it. The young man snaps at him to quit the act, saying he's been playing the same lie, just like always. He snarls that he's sure Alfred won't be coming back home. Then he turns menacing and demands to know what on earth Alfred could be doing here, because this country has zero reason to meddle with people like him. A dark-haired kid steps forward and blurts, "Introduce me. His name is Zeke, and yeah, word's gotten out that Greyberg has a real call for heroes. This forbidden magic demands brutal sacrifices, at least. That's what the young man believes, because as far as he knows, there's no way to summon it unless someone pays the price." The man tells him Zeke came here chasing the answer to this question, then the reply hits hard. "I'm not talking." So he leans in and demands, "Just answer me." He warns that this magic will spark wars, and before anyone even thinks they'll survive, it'll cut down every soul caught in it, fast, clean, and brutal. The man says the boy's so straightforward, it's almost shocking, and then he tells him there's no reason to be that impatient. Zeke insists this is only a countdown before the whole world gets hit, and the fallout from hero summoning magic is way too loud to sweep under the rug. The man tells Zeke to judge for himself, but he never says he'll let them pass. Zeke's convinced that means the guy's about to fight back, so he warns him, "If you try it, you'll die right here," and he calls the man Albert Morlow. The man snaps that Zeke is a brat and says he clocked him from the very beginning. Then the boy tells his comrades to back off, he'll handle this alone. Zeke's comrade snaps that Zeke better stay razor careful, because even if the guy looks harmless, he's got a sage's class hidden under that face. Zeke shrugs it off and tells the kid not to fret, because he won't back down from guarding his spot in front of the great wizard everyone calls the Forest Mage. The man blurts out an apology, because if that trio had all gone in together, they might have actually stood a chance. Then Zeke steps in, swears he's got this, and tells everyone to let him handle it alone. He tells everyone Zeke's wildly underestimating him, then rips into Dragonheart as a bunch of fools before throwing down his name and swearing he'll end Zeke's life. Meanwhile, Zeke unleashes his dragon power and smashes into Albert Marlowe. Soon, the whole battlefield got swallowed by towering trees, and Albert Marlowe lay in their roots, soaked in blood. As the man stared back and admitted he never once imagined he'd get defeated. He spun towards Zeke and demanded, "Tell me, are you really a man?" He figured the kid had to be a dragon, because years ago he'd actually seen one with his own eyes. Zeke snaps that he sees zero reason to answer, but the man erupts in laughter, claiming Zeke won't even get a moment to speak before that old man's breath gives out. Zeke slides in beside him, leans close, and demands he ask again, then presses the man hard about whether the ritual to summon heroes was truly carried out in Greyberg. The man shuts his eyes and tells the boy he already has the answer, then spits, "No smoke without fire," even as the ritual's proof gets wiped clean, so Zeke won't find a thing. The man finally admits he pulled off the summoning ritual a whole month ago, plenty of time for the magic to fade, leaving no traces behind. Zeke rises to his feet and shrugs it off, because Albert just confessed to performing the ritual that summons heroes, so that's all the proof they need. The man snaps that Zeke and his crew are about to call this justice, but it's nothing, just a massacre with no reason. Zeke gets wounded by the talk about justice, snapping that it's not even about whether they believe in it or not, because this isn't justice, and it definitely isn't some vigilante game. Then Albert whips around to Alfred and asks straight up if this is really what he wanted. He asks if Alfred feels anything watching a guy like that, and then he blurts out, "Where the hell did the real Alfred go?" The young man snaps back that there's no use trying to reach his heart, because from day one, people meant nothing to him at all, and now all he can feel is pure disgust. He also claims that Albert and Greyberg didn't just kick off a war against demons, they dabbled in forbidden magic too, sacrificing their own subordinates in the process. And then he spits that they're nothing but fools. With pure disgust, he declares that this country's finished. Albert snaps back that they're not fools, and everyone should do the same. Or else what's the point? Alfred whips his head away, then smirks and says it's lucky to die with thoughts like these. Then he cuts the conversation short and orders the man to drop fast. Albert lets out a bitter laugh and snaps that it's cruel to spit those words at a dying old man. Then, sprawled on the tree roots, he squeezes out his final words because he can see it plain. Alfred isn't the prince he used to be anymore. Right then, Nemu bolted to her master and blurted that everything looked absolutely incredible, especially the huge market they were strolling through. Masamune and his crew rolled into Vik, and the sheer crowd size blew his mind. Shara even said it's a trading city, so of course there'd be even more people packed here. Nemu's eyes sparkle as she stares at the gorgeous goods and practically begs Masamune to let her buy them. And Masamune grins back, saying that since they have already landed in Vik, they might as well grab a bunch of things. Shara pushes them to hit the farm first, then promises she'll hook them up with a tour once they're done working here. When Tilla finally reached the farm, she spotted a weird creature, and she refused to believe it was even named Wolstein. Because it was anything but cute, Masamune snapped at her to move faster and not let him get stuck behind. Finally, they burst up to the house. Shara slammed on the door, but nothing. Toa figured it was empty until Nemu spotted a huge crowd of people. A massive crowd packed around a towering barn, buzzing with questions, and then someone demanded, "Give it up!" But the other person snapped back, shaking with fear, saying they were scared every single day. People stared at one man and grilled him because the info said he should have already gotten rid of that person. Others snapped back that he couldn't just surrender and abandon the place. And then the talk turned dark and simple. Sell the farm, walk away, and live in peace. They hauled Borivik, the farm's owner, into questioning, then panic hit him hard as he begged the villagers to hold on, claiming he'd already fired off a request to the guild in the capital. The woman blurted out that Bori had been hinting at this for ages, like they were headed straight here, and the man shot back that he was certain help would finally arrive today. The man begged them to hold on a little longer, just until tomorrow, but the residents flat out refused. Masamune clocked it right away. These people were pure cruelty. Then Shara snapped, yelling at them to stop, begging for a second of their attention as she revealed she'd come from the capital, sent to destroy the basilisk. "I'm Shara," she declared. Borivik blinked in shock, so that girl was really an adventurer. The man lit up with joy and practically shouted for everyone to welcome the guild's adventurers at last, because now things were finally going to be okay. People started to scatter, furious that the man couldn't warn them the adventurers would show up today, because if they'd known, they never would have made all that noise in the first place. Borivik snapped into a handshake with Shara, then a man stared them down, spat, spun on his heel, and Masamune's attention instantly got yanked. Nemu suddenly blurted that something smelled off, so Masamune demanded what it was, and she just insisted the air had a weird stink. Then they both turned their heads to watch the man. The man was still clenching Shara's hand, grinning like they'd finally made it, and the girl admitted they'd run a bit late on the way. The man demanded, "Are you really going to kill that basilisk?" Masamune shot him down and said, "Yeah, and we're finishing it today," then grinned because he still wanted to roam the city some more. The man snapped them to a stop, and as panic flared on the young men's faces, he told them how grateful he was, then warned them that a basilisk was an A-rank monster, not some joke, and that he'd been an adventurer too. With respect, he said, they didn't need to charge in so fast. Shara tells him not to fret one bit, she's got this, because Mr. Masamune is here, and she swears everything's about to run perfectly. He figured he'd take care of it today. No problem, until Shara leaned on him harder than ever, dumped the whole job in his lap, and then blurted his name like he was already caught. Shara offers to check the barn herself, then presses, "So this really belongs to Boreas, right?" And the man nods without hesitation. Shara calls Masamune and hands over the keys to the barn, and the three of them, Masamune, Shara, and Nemu, march straight to it, while the girl insists she wasn't imagining a single thing. The little girl swears the barn smells exactly the same. Then Masamune snaps back, "No way you could mean the basilisk smell." Nemu tells him flat out that the fancy-dressed guy who showed up just recently smelled exactly the same. Borea plops down beside him and fires off, "So you mean that man with the wart right under his nose?" And the girl nods, confirming it. Masamune presses the man for answers, and Borea snaps back his name's Mr. August. And yeah, it's probably him. Masamune asks Boreas if he knows him, and the man snaps back when he sent word to the capital. August showed up and demanded they wipe out the basilisk. Augustus is a merchant who once set up shop in this city. Shara presses him on whether he really wanted to get rid of the basilisk, and Boreas answers without hesitation he wanted that land as a prize. Boreas' beak snapped that the whole proposal felt wildly wrong, so he rejected Augustus on the spot because this land had been handed down from generation to generation. Masamune claims he's got the full picture and then drops the bombshell that Augustus is behind all of it. Shara also admits it feels true basilisks normally lurk deep in the forest, so it's downright suspicious that he chose to build a nest right here. The girl insists Augustus probably wanted the land all to himself, and Boreas can't believe what he's hearing, like he has to figure out how far greed could possibly go. Masamune says taking Nemu with them was a lifesaver without her. They'd never even picked up that smell then. To turns to the girl and loudly praises her for the amazing work she just pulled off. Masamune tells them, if that's the deal, don't kill the basilisk, just drive it out. Shara suggests she should just knock him out cold and drag him into the forest until he wakes up, because the young man instantly thinks it's a brilliant plan. Masamune cracks the lock, swings the door open, then freezes as three massive basilisk heads stare back at him from inside. He slams the door shut and snaps, "There are 3 basilisks in here." Shara's eyes go wide. "Your request said 1. The man insists 1 was here yesterday, but Shara won't buy it for a second. There's no way 3 could have spawned overnight." The girl warns them that even a single drop of basilisk venom is deadly, so nobody in their right mind would chase a quest with 3 basilisks unless the payout was massive. Then she adds that the quest's rank stays the same, but the reward hits like a truck. Masamune finally gets why Shara hesitated, because staying behind and letting those basilisks loose is a death sentence. Boreas squeezes his hands together and begs the adventurers for forgiveness, swearing there were 3 of them from the very start because Lord Augustus demanded to see what Boreas had written in the task, and Boreas had to lie. If folks really knew there were 3 basilisks lurking inside, they'd slam down every extreme precaution they could, but he can't ignore it either, because he knows adventurers won't bravely charge in to kill all 3, and he can't just sit there and do nothing. Masamune leans in and asks Shara, "If I slice off their heads, will these monsters actually drop?" And she nods, confirming it. The young man snaps that the plan is changing. They're going to wipe out every last basilisks. Then he remembers, 2, Sharon still has to gather materials from them. Masamune insists he's got this by himself and orders everyone to stay away from the barn. But Nemu bursts into terrified screams, "This is way too dangerous. He's just a healer." Masamune snaps back that she shouldn't panic, because he'll wipe them out fast. He figures that if he uses decomposition, the monsters will be stripped down to nothing, so he can't afford that, meaning he's forced to use the sword. The young man barges into the barn, and there 3 monstrous basilisks slam into his path. But before fear can freeze him, his mind snaps back to a technique that can drop all 3 at once. He finally finds the move he's been chasing, Godspeed, powered by the Beast King style, and the Beast King Abyssword to seal it. In a blink, he decapitates 3 monsters, then strides into the street like it was nothing at all. In the blink of an eye, Nemu, Shara, Toa, and Boreas Vik stared him down in absolute bone-chilling silence. She couldn't stop grinning. She called him amazing because he nailed it so fast. Masamune told Shara that they had to rush out and grab the materials fast. Sharon needed tonsils, poison glands, and huge fangs. The moment she heard that, the girl snapped, "Got it," and jumped into action right away. Toa whips around to Masamune and declares that these basilisks weren't a threat at all. Then Masamune blurts out what she means, and Toa tells him flat out they've been trained. Suddenly, Merchant Augustus barrels toward them and demands to know what they just did. He insists the basilisks are the city's doing, and Borvik presses him hard. Was that merchant truly behind all of this? Out of nowhere, a man popped up behind Augustus and demanded, "Which one of you is Boreas?" Then he grinned and promised that once his sword swung, Boreas's head would spin in the air like a perfect pirouette. Then the man spotted 3 dead basilisks and demanded to know why his pets were suddenly lying lifeless. August points straight at Masamune's group and snarls that they're the ones who slaughtered his basilisks. He scans the crowd, jabs a finger at the toe, and demands to know if she's really the one who wiped out his basilisks. He whips his gaze to Shara and boasts that her magic is just as dangerous. Then he orders them to butcher every man first. After that, he says he'll hack the women apart, drag them to the tavern, and make them work off the death of his pets. August cracks up and pins everything on Boreas himself, says he should have just accepted the offer, so Boreas fires back, demanding to know why the merchant even wanted his land. August throws his arms wide and declares he's going to build a luxurious mansion because he wants to soak up life by staring over the breathtaking city, exactly what every merchant secretly dreams of. Boreas Vik snarls that August is pathetic, and the merchant fires back that nobody's got time for the whining of a weakling. He even claims, "If Boreas had just handed me the land willingly, I could have paid so none of this bloodshed would have happened if that man hadn't gone and hired those adventurers." The man bursts into laughter and tells Boreas it's finished, he'll die right here. Then the swordsman turns to Augustus, praising them as beasts, and says he'll have to fork over a fortune to hire them for the job. August swears he never meant to cheat, then ups the stakes. He'll pay double if he wipes them all out. But if even one survives, the guy walks away with nothing. The mercenary snaps and asks who August thinks he is, especially when his name is Gordon. Then the man steps in and demands, "So who goes first?" And August tells everyone to make up their own minds. Toa steps forward and declares she'll be first. And Gordon grins, then asks if she really wants to take him on alone, so the second girl can jump in too. Shara strides up and declares she's in too. Then Masamune turns to them and blurts, "So what are you two doing now?" Together, they corner Mr. Masamune and demand he stay out of this fight, stand behind them, and let things play out while the young man stares in shock, and Gordon snaps that he doesn't like any of this. Gordon snaps that he can't stand it because he despises guys like Masamune who hide behind women. He stares at him, then decides he'll kill him first, no hesitation, no mercy. Meanwhile, Toe and Shara surged in and struck, but the man swung his broadsword and shut them down cold. The man claimed the girls were insanely nimble, like they couldn't stop wanting to play with him. With one explosive lunge, he shoves them back in an instant, and Masamune instantly realizes just how terrifyingly strong he is. The man lunges at the Toe and grins, promising he'll play with them and make sure he can satisfy them. Right then, Shira came charging in, and Gordon was already winding up to smack her back with a knee. Shara instantly caught what was happening and slapped her own hand over her mouth. Gordon jolts with surprise. She actually manages to shove the attack back. Then he smirks and mutters that it's exactly what you'd expect from the king of the White Knights. The girl snaps that the man mistook her for someone else, and he fires back, "No, Shara can't lie." He still can't tell which one it is, but give him a little more time. If he keeps playing, the truth will snap into place. He tells the tale of Bori's farm, how that land used to belong to King Arnold, the ruler of Rasthausen. Of course he's a king, so he'd never waste an ordinary adventurer here, especially when his friend Boreas Vik is in deep trouble. Shara snaps into a fighting stance and fires back, saying that this whole thing is nothing but a meaningless assumption. She lunges at him, but he whips out of the way at the last second. Gordon clicks his tongue and tells the girl, straight to her face, that she's a terrible liar. He lunges at her, but she just manages to drop into a crouch, then explodes forward with a multi-point strike, only for Gordon to slam all of it back with his sword. Then he blurts out, I knew Shara was the king of the White Knights. Shara blares out Toa's name, and the girl snaps her lightning spell straight at Gordon. Shara snaps back, smiling wide, and tells the girl, you did an amazing job. August snapped his gaze at the man. He grips his battered sword, still scorching from battle, and then he slams his berserker ability on, unleashing a monster-level fury. Shara spots the dark magic hiding inside this spell. Masamune can tell the girl is terrified, and he can't shake the feeling that Gordon unleashed some forbidden magic. Gordon's like, the White King probably knows just how deadly this magic really is. That was the first time he got beaten like that. Now it's finally done. He clenches the change and then declares, loud and fearless, I'm invincible now. Masamune stands off to the side and points out that this form looks downright deadly. Gordon starts yelling at Masamune to shut up and stop interfering, because he's going to play with the girls first. Shura lunges in, but Tilla yells for her to stop. Shura ignores her and smashes the monster anyway, only for her rapier to crack against Gordon's armor. The man blurts out, I'm so sorry. Then Sucker punches the girl, sending her flying straight into a tree and crashing into him right after. He steps up to her and tells her, tells her like it's obvious, that she has no clue what kind of magic this really is. Now her physical hits and magic spells bounce off him like they mean nothing. He swings his arm to clock the girl, but Tilla slips in from behind like lightning and vanishes into action. Toa's eyes crackle with lightning, like pure electricity just fired to life. The man twists around too late because the girl snaps her thunderstorm sword and slices Gordon clean in his berserker rampage. The man blurts out that this is impossible, and Shara stares at it all, totally stunned. A man drops to the ground, horrified as part of his body is ripped away. Toa shoots out his hand towards Shara, then demands, are you okay? Shira blurts out that Toa saved her, and then she fires back a heartfelt thanks for always being right there, backing them up no matter what. Suddenly, Gordon pops up behind the girl. Nobody can figure out how he's still standing on his feet. Gordon hammers the point again. He's invincible now, and he wants everyone to know it. He fires up true resurrection magic and brings the dead back like it's nothing. He grips the cursed great spear and unleashes its wrath. Toa sprinted to shield Shara, but in the blink of an eye, Masamune burst in front of the girls and slammed down his spell. August spun around, eyes wide, trying to piece together what on earth just happened. Suddenly, Gordon's hand drops to the ground at his feet. Masamune bluntly asks if he's really okay with getting the exact same thing. Masamune grabs Sporius and demands, so what are we doing with Augustus? The man bolted straight for Boreas and started begging, please, just let him go. He even swears he won't bring a single more problem his way. Boreas snapped back that this land had been handed down from generation to generation, and he'd never let it slip into the hands of someone who only cared about himself. If August swears he'll never step back on this earth again, they'll spare his life, so he makes that vow on the spot, begs for forgiveness, and forces the moment to go his way. After a while, Bori grins and declares he's finally snagged the materials, then Shara wastes no time thanking him. Bori brushes it off, saying he doesn't want thanks because he didn't do anything special. The man also says, I can't pay a cent more than what this order says, but I can offer you something else. He hands them a bag and leans in, asking if they'll take it in exchange. Bori swears that the bag is packed with the meat of the steins he raises, plus top-tier materials from the Yellowsteins, and then he demands that you accept all of it. Bor throws out an apology and begs for forgiveness, but it's the only thing he can give. Masamune spots the smiling girls, then tells the guy not to sweat because this is an insanely great reward. Borivix tells them, you all protected this ranch today, and you can tell he'll never forget it. Then he thanks them again, straight from the bottom of his heart. Striding down the road, Shara grills, Masamune, did he really master the sword? Because when she first taught him fencing, he couldn't land a thing but against the basilisk. Masamune tore through it in seconds. Masamune knows this power showed up after that day, but he just shrugs and admits it's brutally hard to explain. Shara insists she believes the boy, but she's also dead sure he's dragging trouble straight into their lives, so Masamune shoots back with an apology. So they decide, let's hit the city and immediately rush off to do some shopping. After a while, Masamune's crew rolled up to the massive local market. Masamune spotted Toa clutching a bag of meat and clocked that look in her eyes, pure, hungry obsession. Toa shot back that it wasn't like that at all. Nemu was the one acting weird, and Masamune told her to stop talking to him because Nemu was totally fine. Toa pointed and said, "Nemu's over there." Masamune strode up to the girl and asked what she wanted, and Nemu lit up, saying the necklaces were absolutely beautiful. The merchant leaned in and asked if she really liked the necklaces. The girl admits she likes them, and the man smirks, saying she's got a sharp eye because these necklaces are packed with a crystal stone pulled straight from Polstera. Masamune lifts the necklace into his hands and studies every detail like it's hiding a secret. The man tells them Polstera is gone for good, but hey, snatch up these necklaces anyway, because you'll never regret it. Shara says the crystal stones from Polstera are legendary. They start out bright blue, then slowly shift colors based on the magical power of whoever's holding them. The merchant swears the color changes based on how strong the owner's magic is, so every time he can't wait to find out what the stone will turn into, he keeps checking. Traders whisper that this stone can lead you straight to a legendary magician. Masamune can't stop wondering if he should grab that necklace as a souvenir. Masamune asks the merchant how much the necklaces cost. Then the guy says each one is 3,000, and Masamune immediately demands 3. After a while, he slips a necklace onto Nemu's neck. The girl thanks him, and Masamune grabs the moment, begging her not to lose the necklace. Then she promises, "Don't worry, I'll treasure it forever." Tola steps right up and tells Masamune to hook her necklace on her too. The boy's cheeks flared red, yet he still slipped the necklace onto the toe. The girl raises her face and shoots the boy a thankful smile. Then, out of nowhere, Masamune's whole body jolts, and he flushes red instantly. Shara's cheeks flared, and she shut her eyes tight. But Masamune panicked and blurted that he'd help her with the necklace, only for her to insist, "I've got this." After a while, Masamune spots a liquor store sign up ahead. Shara squints and says it looks like a liquor store, and they all decide to charge right inside. Nemu squints as a brutal stench of alcohol hits her hard from inside. The merchant flashes a grin, asks if the visitors want anything specific, and Masamune shakes his head. "Nah, we're good." Then the man points at the pricey drinks and insists on those exact ones. Masamune's stomach drops because he knows this is going to gut his wallet. Right then, he spots a sign and the man tells him straight up that Old Held, the drink he wanted, is gone for good. Masamune leans in and asks, "Is this wine?" The man freezes, stunned, blurting, "What?" And the young guy just stands there, clueless about the whole drink. Old Held isn't just a brand, it's also the name of a ghostly wine. And it's been discontinued for good. Even the merchant can't say how many bottles are still lurking somewhere in the world. Masamune suddenly realizes he's seen that exact label before, and he even knows he named it somewhere once. Then it hits him. He remembers the drink he'd stumbled across in that dungeon at the very start of his journey. He pulls out a bottle and demands to know, no jokes, if it's truly that old. The man clamps down on Masamune's hand and screams in terror, begging him to say if he can see Masamune is trembling, scared out of his mind, but he nods and agrees. The man scrutinizes the bottle with precision tools, and Toe leans in, asking if it's the very same wine Masamune drank, even offering a taste while the young man nods and agrees. After staring at the bottle, the man declares it's definitely real, not some cheap fake. Then the young guy leans in and asks if he can taste the wine, and the man's eyes go wide as he blurts, "Wait, you really mean I can?" Then he pours some into a glass, swirls it like he's waking it up, takes a sharp sniff, and sips a tiny taste. Suddenly it hit him. He blurted, "This drink is really Old Geld." The man tells how, as a kid, he snuck something Old Held in his father's office, and the shocking taste stayed burned into his memory even decades later. He stares at the bottle, swears it's the real deal, and says there's no way it's some cheap knockoff old stuff for sure. The man grilled Masamune, "Where'd you get it?" And the boy shot back, "I found it in the dungeon." He paused for a beat, then clenched his fist and demanded could Masamune hand him the drink. The man shoots back, "Of course I'm not asking for it for free, name your price." Then he leans in and asks, "How about 10 million? Shara slams into the convo out of nowhere and demands, "Wait, did you say 10 million? The man yanks out his most expensive prize and declares Masamune can have it too, then boasts that the young guy can take anything in the store until Masamune steps in and tells him to wait just a moment. Masamune snaps that one bottle won't handle all that. Then the guy explodes, screaming that it's still not enough. He's been doing this forever, so he won't sugarcoat a thing. People claim that wine is gone for good, and any true connoisseur of alcohol would kill to taste it. This thing's worth a cool 100 million, and aristocrats are ready to throw down $1 billion for it. The young man just stood there, stunned, because he never imagined a drink could cost that much. The man says, that's exactly why you can go ahead and demand anything for him, but as of right now, 30 million is the absolute ceiling. Then it hits him. He's got the right connections, so he can sell wine straight to the aristocrats and pull in at least $1 billion. He turns to the young man and promises to hand over half the profits. Masamune clocks it instantly. This guy truly needs that wine, and he's got around 100 more bottles stashed away, plus a whole lot of barrels too. The young man squinted at the seller and said, you can tell he's not lying, so nothing bad's gonna happen, as he demanded 30 million. If he can cough up this full amount right now, he hands over this bottle immediately, no stalling, no regrets, and definitely no backing out halfway after he sells it. The man couldn't process what he was hearing. He never expected the boy to actually agree to sell that bottle. He tells him to hold up for a second, then storms in carrying a bag, drops the first 5 million into the mix, and claims he got it straight from the bank. Masamune finally realizes this world has banks too, and then the guy grins, saying he'll bring even more. He shoves 30 million right in front of him, cracks open that pricey drink, and the second he gets it, joy floods his face. He breaks into tears. Shara stares at the cash and freezes. Turns out Masamune had been sitting on old gold. The young man leans in and asks if she truly knows this drink too. Then she smiles and says her father owns the Budo vineyards. The merchant leans in and demands Shara's roots. Are they tied to the Ikarat family? Shara doesn't blink and declares she's the daughter of Brown Ikarat. As a kid, she heard over and over that Old Gwelt was the best wine on earth, and the man swears it's 100 true. Then he leans in and tells Masamune he'll be back for sure, clutching the proceeds. He shoves the bottle into the box and fires off. So what are you going to do now? Masamune snaps back. Shara's rapier had shattered. The girl hangs her head, swallowing her pride, and admits she feels ashamed. Every Knight of the White King gets this rapier, so yeah, it was forged just for her, which means if hers breaks, no one's getting a replacement cheap. The boy promises he'll grab her a brand new weapon right now, but Shara snaps back that she can't possibly repay the debt, so he waves it off and says not to stress, then adds that he'll use it to get fresh clothes for Toa and Nemu. Toa asks about the clothes, and the boy shoots back that a girl can't wear the same outfit every single day. Then the mail shop assistant smirks and says he knows the perfect store, so he tells them he'll take the boys there. Masamune. He just narrows his eyes and thinks. Shara stares at the memories of Lord Masamune's sword and whispers that it feels downright weird. The young man pulls it out and says it's called a snake blade, and that he snagged it from a dungeon, so the man demands to see the blade, then warns Masamune not to throw the word dungeon around so lightly. The young man presses for why they're banning it, and the older man snaps back. If you truly got this blade from the dungeon, then you're in deep trouble. This sword could be legendary or straight-off mythical, and if it is, that kid's life is on the line. Masamune fires a question, do weapons really have ranks? Shara answers with a cold truth, everything has a rank, from the materials to the weapons, the borers, and even the monsters. Normal rank is the bottom rung, and the top rank is straight up fantastic. But she also makes it clear there's no fixed rule for how much stuff below normal like goblin teeth will be worth. He pleads, listen to me, then blurts that this sword has to be brought in for evaluation. He even knows exactly what rank it carries. But he insists they'd better check with their own eyes, and the whole thing can be tested right there in the store he's pointing to. He also claims Masamune can choose for himself whether he'll stay safe as long as he keeps that sword. The young man swears this sword was Sean's, so there's no way its rank is trash. He grabs the moment, wants answers about its true rank, and straight up tells the man to lead the way. After a while, they finally hit Cook's shop. He claimed it was just a general store run by his massive company, but the truth was way darker. It was packed with artifacts. Masamune's crew pushed into the store, and the moment they did, they started hunting through the shelves because the young man could instantly tell this place was packed, like it was built for a massive company. Nemu's eyes lit up at all the sparkling displays, and she bolted through the store. Then Tilla snapped, stop, and chased after her. The man slammed his sword onto the counter and demanded an appraisal, then told Masamune he'd stay put for the results while the boy was free to wander around the area. Masamune promised he'd team up with Nemu to go hunt down Toa, while Shara took that instant to test out a brand new rapier for herself. The girl blurted out, "Wait, am I really allowed to do that?" Masamune grinned and said a new rapier would cover the room like a payment, so he'd get something back and she wouldn't feel so painfully awkward. He paused for a second, then said that if that was how it went, she was in and agreed to those conditions. After a while, Masamune finally spotted Toa, staring at the armor like it offended her. She shrugged and said it wasn't anything special. She already had a sword, but the armor they offered was way too heavy, and she wanted something lighter. The female consultant barges into their talk and flashes an idea maybe this equipment is perfect for the girl. This light armor is forged from wyvern scales, and it's so rare rank and tough it feels nearly indestructible. Masamune looks at that rare rank and scoffs it's not worth much to him. Not when he wants something way better. And besides, this armor is totally wrong for a Toha. The young man spots the curtain and blurts, "What's behind that?" The consultant says there's a whole stash of royal-grade items there, and before anyone tries to touch them, you better check their legitimacy and solvency first. The girl leans in and asks, "Do you really have enough money?" The young guy flashes the cash and fires back, asking if 10 million is really enough. The girl blurts out an apology and begs him to follow her into the room. Then it hits the young man. Her reaction screams that royal rank isn't as costly as he thought. The second Masamune steps inside, he feels it. This place is totally different. Then Toa leans in and asks if he truly wants to burn through the full 10 million. She snaps that you don't need to burn that kind of money, even if the guy's got a royal title. And the young man fires back that the armor here has to be top tier, no exceptions. He has zero clue what it's truly worth, so he doesn't want to blow his money all at once. He decides to look around first. That young guy strides up to the display case and shouts at Toa, asking what's the deal with these things. The consultant swears this is the Guardian's Hagoromo, crafted by a top alchemist from royal-grade cloth and materials, built to last, stretch with ease, and somehow stay light as air. Toa pressed the boy for his opinion, and he said it felt right perfect for her, way better than hauling around heavy armor, so they grabbed the item and went for it. Masamune leans in, asks the price, and the seller drops 1.5 million. And Toa immediately asks if he's really sure. Then Masamune grins and says it's no big deal. They're buying it. The Toa get dragged off to try on the armor, and Masamune spots Nemu staring at the display cases, so she admits there's just too much stuff around, and she can't pick a single thing. Masamune fires off a question to the consultant. Do they have a reservation for a kid? He's already flashed that mithril shirt and made it clear you can slip it under other armor. This piece was forged by an elven master seamstress, which is why it'll cost you a whopping 2 million, then magic kicks in, stretching and shrinking to fit its owner perfectly. The young man blurts, "So what rank is this thing?" And the reply hits him fast. It's got a royal rank right on the t-shirt. Masamune leans in and tells Nemu, "This shirt goes under your clothes, wear it, and it'll protect you." Nemu shoots back, "But that armor is insanely expensive." And Masamune grins, "Yeah. Then consider it a small price to keep you safe." The girl yelled that she got it, then thanked the boy with pure joy. Masamune shot back, telling her to change her clothes and try on the t-shirt. Then Tilla stepped up to Masamune and unveiled something brand new. And the kid just stared, completely stunned by how beautiful it was, so she leaned in and demanded his opinion. The young man, mortified but smiling, blurted that the outfit fit Toe perfectly, then demanded where she snagged the new clothes. Toe shot back that the consultant picked them out and told her they fit her exactly right. Then Nemu stepped up to Masamune and said, "I changed." And sure enough, she was rocking a totally different sweater. Masamune frowned and asked where she even got it, and Nemu answered without missing a beat. The consultant picked them out for her. Nemu spotted a secret pocket in the hood just for the ears. Then a guy stepped out and explained they were built for the girl's look, so she could hear crystal clear even with the hood pulled up, and Masamune couldn't believe the insane custom service. Meanwhile, Shura stared at a gorgeous rapier with a little snowflake etched beside the hilt. Then Masamune suddenly slid up and asked her straight up if she liked it. The girl snapped that she couldn't stand her at all, and the young man immediately got exactly what was going through her head. The consultant swore that this rapier, forged from unicorn horn, came straight from the mountains of Arda, so the young man leaned in and demanded, "Where are those mountains?" The girl said the Arda Mountains are a brutal range in modern towering up to 10,000 meters, where the cold never lets go and snow has been piling up for hundreds of years. Most monsters won't even step foot there. The cold scares them off. People swear unicorns live in those mountains, and when they gather power, their bodies soak up ice magic, but their horns hoard the biggest stash of all. Unicorns can only thrive in brutal conditions, so they're top tier, meaning the materials they produce are top tier too. Masamune leans in and demands, "So you're really being hunted in the mountains?" The girl smirks and says, "Yeah, but sometimes unicorns wander down to the foothills." Just like she said earlier, the rapier is forged from a unicorn's horn, so that blade carries deadly magic ice. Sure, this saber was hammered by the finest blacksmiths, so it cost a whopping 5 million, and that number made Chara's hands go cold with sweat. Masamune grilled Chara, did the girl use ice magic? If she did, this rapier would fit her like it was made for her. The girl nodded along, then shot back that the weapon was way too pricey because she wasn't an experienced knight yet, and she had to hunt for something cheaper. Masamune fires off the question, should he grab it for himself? Chara grins and declares it's the absolute finest rapier around. The blade gleams and the guard and handle are pure art, plus it's packed with ice magic, so it's basically the perfect weapon. After hearing her out, he promises to take her to Chara, then drops a staggering 5 million on the consultant. She screamed at the top of her lungs and insisted she shouldn't accept it, because she truly didn't feel she deserved a gift that expensive. The young man grins and tells the girl it's too late to stop him. He already bought the rapier, then he thrusts it into her hands. The girl clamps her hands around the blade, thanks Masamune with tears in her eyes, and promises that from this day on, it'll be her most precious weapon. After a while, the wine shop man hands the snake blade to Masamune, and the boy blurts, "So how'd the appraisal go?" Only for the man to say they straight up couldn't figure out the sword's value. Chara said, "Then the blade is legendary rank," and the man snapped back, "No way, because the seller promised we could check for legendary rank ourselves." "Rank meaning this blade is basically mythical tier," Chara gasped, eyes wide, because it was the first time she'd ever seen anything like it yet. The man just smirked and said, "I've seen it too." Masamune leans in and asks if what is on display is truly some legendary rarity, so the man tells him straight up that nobody's seen myth rank gear or anything higher in ages, and people honestly started believing it didn't exist at all. But yeah, they do show up in the ranking system, though the idea that gear at that rank exists is still just a theory, like how immortal rank monsters are only a rumor. The seller swears he measured it right, but he can't even tell what's higher than legendary, so yeah, don't buy his story. Masamune's mind raced. If Shun had owned this blade before, he'd have expected a big name rank, but not this high. The young man clung to Cheyenne's words, "Hand that snake sword to the demoness girl, because it's special and it might not fit him." He tells Toa to listen to him, and then asks if she'd mind fighting with this sword. She snatches it up fast and says it's way too valuable to waste, like maybe she should just keep it for herself. Masamune outright tells her this sword just doesn't fit him, so he urges her to see it for herself because as a healer, he can't use it, which means it's perfect for the Toa. The girl studies the blade and declares they'll trade swords. Then the man snaps that the boy is totally weird for just handing over priceless stuff to strangers, and Masamune shrugs, saying he has no need for that treasure at all. The man lets out a heavy sigh and snaps that the boy is either way too generous or straight up too stupid, and Masamune fires back that he's just an ordinary guy. Maybe he's changed a little, he thinks, because he used to be alone, but now he's met girls, and he's genuinely grateful to them from the bottom of his heart. Right in front of the crowd, a massive portrait of Albert Morlot towered overhead, while the king stood directly beneath it, staring up like he owned the moment. He told me Albert Morlot was one of their closest friends. Sometimes he led with wisdom, sometimes with sheer force. Either way, he fought beside them for years and kept their kingdom standing. For Greybook, when a mage like that dies, it's not just tragedy, it's a loss they can never mend. The king tells them they'll never be able to repay him, and now what they're about to say, dedicated to their friend's memory, has to hit with everything. At first, they plan to lock the secret away and keep everyone in the dark. He tells everyone in the room, "We're all grieving, we're all hurting, so if that's true, then you all deserve the truth." Albert Morlot met his end at the Dragonheart's hands, and that terrifying crew didn't just pick fights, they took on the whole kingdom. The king roars to every corner of his kingdom that these scoundrels from that organization will be met with a brutal death because only then can they repay the debt of friendship. Right now, at the Kingdom of Ares National Academy, on the #1 training field, a single girl stood waiting. She hurried to Masamune's classmates and dropped the horrifying truth: Mr. Albert was gone. She said the Dragon Heart organization criminals who carve up politicians and aristocrats showed up near the kingdom's borders just yesterday. Albert sprinted straight to the fight, but luck betrayed him. He still couldn't win. She told them she'd come all this way just to pass along Albert's dying news to the young men and women, but somehow it only crushed the teenager's spirit. One of Masamune's old bully classmates bragged that Mr. Albert had taught them all magic, and even when they botched it, he still stayed kind. He was such an amazing teacher that everyone genuinely adored him. So when his time finally came, they all begged, "Please pass along our love," in his last wishes. The girl thanks them and flashes a confident smile, saying she's sure Albert would be proud of the guys. Then she breaks the truth wide open: if they want peace in these lands, they've got to crush the Demon King. That motto of Greyberg, it's also Albert's final testament. She tells them the young men and women are Albert's and the whole kingdom's last hope, then begs for the chance to loan them her own power. After a while, Sayaki closes in on a young man named Ichihu and shouts his name to grab his attention. He demanded to know one thing: was Ichiju really ignoring every word Ares was saying? They're all busting their butts for the country and pushing through training, so Ichijo better not dodge his duty. The young man says, "I listened to everything," then shrugs off the rules because now it's his free time, and he's spending it the way he wants since even rest matters. He glances at Sayaki and goes, "You know how I snap at you for every tiny thing? That's why I figured Hidaka probably felt the same kind of frustration too." Seiki exploded into shouting and demanded that Ichijo quit rambling about that dead man, only for Ichijo to shoot back that the woman had shown up too, just to talk to them about the corpse. Seiki demanded, "When you say the dead man, who are you talking about, Ares?" And Ichihu shot back, "Then who do you think I mean?" Seiki's a bully and a total jerk, but deep down he's clueless, so he never catches it. Then the young man snaps, asking what Ichijo's even going on about, and Seiki blurts out that he means that woman, like there's definitely something off about her last speech too. Seiki yanks his classmate by the collar and snarls, "So what gives you the nerve to say that?" The young man fires back with a counter question, demanding to know why Seiki is guarding this woman with such fierce, unshakable devotion. He leans in and asks how everyone reacted to her story about the old man's death, and yeah, it's painfully clear just by looking that they got even more fired up, even though the truth is a man died and someone killed him. It wasn't some random victim who got killed. It was a legendary sage who'd served the kingdom for decades. So yeah, there was no way not to be devastated. He tears Psyche's hand away and demands to know if it all felt strange then. Every single time Ares shows up, he kicks off with the worst news: the kingdom's in a dire state, or people are being slaughtered by demons. Before she even walks out the door, she always drops a sweet line talking about how much she believes in the boys. Most of the boys sprinted to training with wild zeal, but the girls didn't catch that same fire. Then the old man showed up, carefree laughter ringing in the air. With Ares dead, he still shows up and orders everyone to carry out his final will, and it's chilling how perfectly it matches that woman's script. Ichijo snaps back, saying it's all nothing but brainwashing. Suddenly, a man storms up to them and demands, "What's going on?" Seiki snaps back that nothing happened. They were just talking about their future. Sayuki tells him they've got to train even harder for the kingdom's sake, and the man slaps his shoulder and says he's counting on him. Once the teacher finally walked out, Ichiju kept going, saying this new Sayaki makes his stomach turn, because even before it wasn't this bad. The boy fires back that Ichiju can think whatever he wants, but he's not going to report him. Ichijo's strength is no joke, which makes him vital to the kingdom, and he just clocked how insanely devoted Seiki is to this place. Right as it was getting worse, the girls standing right nearby overheard it all. Then one of them snapped at the boys to shut it down, because everyone was finally done with Ichiju's constant nagging. A second girl pipes up saying Ichijo used to be cool once, but now he's just awful. Ichijo smirked and went, "Girls never change, at least. That's how I see it. They can't look past the tip of their noses." The girls went into full hysterics the second Ichijo hurled the explosion spell, And then, out of nowhere, something detonated right above them. Ichijo shot them a menacing stare and snapped that they were like leeches always clinging to someone and refusing to let go because if he wasn't good enough, they'd just latch onto Seiki, so he demanded, who would they cling to after Seiki? He says if you're cowering behind someone else's back, you can talk all you want and somehow your words won't land on you as your own. If Hidaka had called the shots on his revenge, everyone would have laughed at him right up until they finally got exhausted of doing it. Seiki leans in and fires off, so you're embarrassed about using magic to scare people. Then he hits Ichijo with a brutal question. Are you a coward? Ichijo shrugs and says, yeah, he shouldn't bring up bullying, but Seiki snaps, grabs him by the collar, and roars at him to think hard about who was really wrong. After a while, Ichijo was finally stranded all by himself. He parked himself by the tree and couldn't shake the feeling that they'd all forgotten something big. As soon as Hidaka got banished, everyone was forced to stare straight at Ares' real face. She cackled with that terrifying grin as she sealed his fate because there was no way she was ever going to be a good person. He's convinced they're nothing but pawns for these people, just pieces waiting to be moved. If they're judged useless, they'll get tossed aside like Hidaka, but it feels way more likely they'll be killed instead, and Ichijo can't figure out why nobody even notices. Masamune stares, demanding to know if he's still alive somewhere out there. After a little while, Masamune and the girls finally rolled up in Rothhausen and straight away headed for Sharon's shop, dumping the materials pulled from the basilisk bodies right into her hands. She couldn't believe they'd actually managed to reel in 3 bays. 1 was hard enough, but 3 was wild. She spun around and asked him if anything had happened to her, and the girl just smiled back. I'm totally fine. The girl clutched Masamune's words in her heart, and when the young man begged her not to spill that he'd killed the basilisks, she knew Sharon couldn't hear it either, so she screamed that Nemu was the one keeping the secret. Masamune snapped the conversation to something else and asked what she planned to do with the basilisk's ingredients, and she grinned she'd brew a secret potion, but told them to wait just a little. After what felt like forever, the woman finally stepped out with a potion in hand. Masamune can't stop wondering what they're about to do with it. The woman snaps, don't you see it? She's using that potion to wipe Nemu's slave mark clean. Masamune frowns, asking if it can truly be erased. The woman answers, of course it can. But because that secret potion is normally used for other purposes, almost nobody knows it can do this. She tells Nemu to hang on to every word, then warns him the medicine will sting a bit, but he has no choice but to stay patient, and she insists she's got this. Then Sharon leans in and tells Masamune, get ready while you wait, you're going to have to hit them with healing magic. At her signal, he has to slam a healing spell onto that wound, no guarantees, because she doesn't bank on it. Still, the young man has to fire his magic at full blast. Masamune clenches his jaw, shudders in place, and snaps that he finally understands every last piece. The woman drizzles the potion onto the girl's hand, and the girl erupts into sharp screams. Sharon cuts in, saying it won't last and to just hold on. Then Sharon watches her start pouring it over the hand, and she slams into Masamune. Your turn, cast healing magic. The boy's healing erased the burn on his hand, and the girl's exhaustion finally eased, so Masamune fired off removal magic, then leaned in and asked if she was okay. She checked herself and said she felt no pain or dizziness, so she was totally fine. They stare at her elbow and see it's been ground down to nothing. Then Shara lights up. Because the secret potion is brewed from basilisk fangs, all she ever knew was that it strengthens the body, and now they're watching proof hit in real time. Sharon says it's usually used as a tonic, but add just a bit more poison and you'll get the effect because it starts chewing through the skin, unleashing brutal pain, and if you get the dose wrong, the skin hardens into stone, so you'd better be insanely careful. Just in case disaster strikes, she gets ready with a healing spell, and she even throws in an ingredient that shuts down petrification. Masamune then notices Nemu's skin is unbelievably soft. Sharon swivels toward Masamune and tells him he's way too calm, and she's never seen healing magic fire off so fast in her life. And get this, the boy could cast the effect removal spell, and she didn't even realize it could wipe out fatigue, honestly. No one would guess Masamune could pull that off just by looking at him. Shara blurts that this is the first time she's ever seen it too, because the young man didn't just learn the attribute, he actually knows how to assign it. And when Shara watches him work, he even asks if it's really not normal for a healer to be able to do that. Sharon slams the truth down, A healer casting that many spells is unheard of. Most healers are stuck with only the one healing spell they start with. Even though it's nowhere near as strong as the priest's holy spell, the most seasoned healers can only manage this attribute at all, and that ability is already wildly rare. If a healer dares to study fresh spells, everyone's going to mock him because even if he pours his heart into it, all he'll ever earn is solid healing skills and some tribute assignment duty. That's why everyone shrugs and labels healers the weakest class. Masamune can still see Ares' face the moment she said it. Sharon clocked that Masamune feels different and fired off a question. Does he know any other spells? He shrugged and said that, in principle, he can boost an ally's attack and defense. Sharon and Shara are totally shocked, and the girl blurts out, "So the Masamune spell, you mean, is really called the Aura of Hatred?" And the young man nods, confirming it. Sharon declares this magic is top tier. She's never even heard of healers like this, so the young man blurts out, "What is it?" Because even though it isn't attack magic, it's still insanely powerful. Sharon snaps back that the power of this spell hits a whole other level, and because only a handful of people can even use it, its value is through the roof. Masamune just grins, thinking, "Yeah, sure, I'm still stuck with the weakest class, but if I can wield high-level magic like this, then damn, my heart feels lighter." After a bit of waiting, the Adventurers Guild girl behind the desk declared that the mission to wipe out the basilisk was officially marked as a success. She announces with real pride that Mr. Neato's been promoted to B rank, and she calls for everyone to throw their congratulations his way. Then the girl drops the bombshell, and Miss Todorika just got promoted to S rank. Masamune snaps, tells her to hold up, and swears there's no way this isn't some kind of mistake. He demands, "How am I supposed to earn a B rank when days ago I was stuck at F rank and even climbed to C rank only as a TOA2? The girl insists there's zero room for error, because that choice was made by the guild leader himself. Masamune whips around to Shara and demands, "Do you guys really promote like that here?" Shara grins and says it usually takes at least a whole year just to crawl up to the next rank. In most cases, once you're climbing the ranks for years, the higher you go, the harder it gets to snag the next one. Masamune figures it'll take at least 4 years to climb from F rank to B rank, and he's barely been in this place for a month. Shara admits she doesn't have the whole story, but if Masamune wants, she'll track down the guild leader, yet the young man shuts it down, insisting everything's fine. Then the registrar girl whips around to Shara and tells her the reward is ready, one she never got to grab earlier, and hands her the rundown, then points to the exact spot where she has to sign. Masamune instantly clocked that the whole talk was about the reward for Nat Klein, and then he even threw out the idea that his promotion could be tied to it too, because nothing else made sense to him. He remembers he signed up in the guild as Neato, and Reinhardt should recognize him as Masamune, but then there's Hilda, who already knows the truth Neato is Masamune. The young man snaps to the fact that he's in real danger because now, at least the guild and the White Royal Knights know the horrifying truth Neato and Masamune are the exact same person. If this keeps going, that pseudonym won't mean a thing anymore. Just as the young man's thoughts race ahead, a stranger's presence slices through his focus. Masamune spins around and there's that familiar guy, yelling that the boy's back to snagging missions again. Masamune snaps back, asking if he still hasn't figured out how pointless he really is. Annette just called her and said, "The girls have been summoned to headquarters." The young man shot back, "Shara can go. Everything's going to be fine here." Then they tore into a quick goodbye and parted ways. The man snaps into screams again, swearing he won't take more mockery from Trash, who's only useful for beating goblins, and before he can spiral further, Nemu cuts in, calls him evil, and orders him to back off from his master. The man stares at the kid and asks who she even is, then turns to the young guy and goads him with, "You keep changing girlfriends every time, and you're probably doing all kinds of things with her, and you're definitely not squeamish." The man throws her an apology and claims he's got business with his healer. Then Nenu snaps, launches up, and slams him with the cat food skill, sending him flying across the guild. Nenu snarls that he's a bully who picks on his master, so now he can taste the cat's fist. The witnesses pointed at the man and called him Yogi, laughing that he didn't know how to drink at all, and Masamune snapped awake because this was the same cat fist Nemu had warned about. The twist matched Sharon's words perfectly. Nemu wasn't just a healer, she was way stronger than any healer out there. Masamune fires off, Why didn't you unleash your cat fist when the drug dealers grabbed you? And Nemu snaps back, because I wasn't in control of myself back then. Toa swears someone probably slipped her matatabi or a close knockoff to inhale, and she even tells the story of a cat-like maid living in the castle. While everyone's warning hits hard, matatabi can make you drunk. As they get older, the sting fades fast, but special training helps them handle the smell way better. Masamune shoots a question. Nemune, did Nemu ever train like that? And Nemune just shrugs, saying she has no idea. In the castle of Rodheisen, Shara stood before that towering door, swallowed her fear, and apologized for barging in right outside. The assembly hall of the White Royal Knights waited. Shara bursts in, gasping out an apology for the delay. Seventh-ranked girl, Shara Ekarat of the White Royal Knights, is finally here. The girl who picked up turned out to be Emily Anderson, the sixth-ranked girl, and she waved off the worries, saying they already knew Shara could run late, so they just geared up and waited. White Royal Knights rank 5. Edward Scotch said he was truly grateful for all the hard work. Then White Royal Knights rank 4. Reed Black was right there in the room too, and the man straight up told them Shara probably went on that mission with the boy. Hilda Ekarat, the White Royal Knights' third-ranked fighter, cornered Shara and grilled her about how the mission went and whether she'd finally made friends with that white cat girl. Daniel King, the White Royal Knights' second-ranked man, snapped that everyone needed to shut up because they were blocking Reinhard from talking. Then Reinhard shot back that it looked like everyone was already all here. Ready. Edward Scotch barges in and stops him cold, then says, "Before we jump to the main topic, I've got a question. Why not just tell Shara straight up that they're going to organize surveillance on the boy? Hiding it would be plain wrong." Shira's jaw drops. Daniel King claims this choice was ordered by His Majesty. And to sniff out Masamune's real motives, he sends Daniel's way to Vik with Shira at his side. Reinhard Rickman, the commander of the White Royal Knights. First rank claims the king saw everything from the very start, which is why he handed Shara this mission. But that's not what's driving today's meeting. Reinhard says the dragon heart has just appeared in Greyberg. Hilda leans in, asks Shara what's really wrong, and Shara swears she's totally fine, but as their white knight, Hilda figures she should have just told Masamune was coming. The problem, Shara didn't know how everyone would react. Reinhard declares he'll push forward, then slams the agenda on the table right here in Greyberg. Someone performed a forbidden ritual to summon heroes. The moment this news hit the room, everyone froze in shock because nobody could believe what they just heard. Reed Black erupted into a huge laugh and shouted that everyone in Greyberg had finally lost their minds. Turns out the Dragonheart showed up in Greyberg for exactly that reason, and Reinhard is pretty sure about it. He claims the forest mage Albert Marlowe already has victims, and they're saying the funeral ceremony is already over. Edwards said he'd heard rumors about this mage back during the war. The way he commanded huge territories with magic terrified his enemies to the core. Reed says that if we remember what happened in the Kingdom of Twyrant, then going straight from killing this mage to calming down just doesn't feel like Dragonheart. Suddenly, Shara shoots up and begs for forgiveness, then blurts out a question about the summoning of the heroes while you realize the girl has no idea what's going on. He shrugs it off and says it's only natural because nobody ever really talks about it. Sure, summoning heroes is a kind of summoning magic, but it's nothing like the normal magic Shara's been learning. Summoning heroes is surprisingly simple. You yank heroes from another world into yours, and when Shara asks Reed whether they're the kind of fairy tale characters she's heard about, Reed shakes his head and says, "It's not wrong, but it's not the whole truth either. Heroes is just the name for anyone they summon, but back in the day, they didn't only call in so-called heroes, they dragged in those mad monsters too. Inside summoned, you don't just start strong, you're wrapped in divine protection called a blessing, with crazy high starter stats, or even the power to cast high-level magic right from the very beginning. People even whisper that these heroes can unlock rare classes and deadly special skills, and Shara wants answers, asking why this kind of magic is forbidden. Reinhardt snaps back that the whole thing works only because the summoners feed people to the ritual, and it drains a brutal amount of mana, so that's how a mana core gets forged. Shara says the mana core can hitch a ride inside other beings, so why gut everyone for it? Reinhardt snaps back that Reed already warned them about this, right after the monster summoning chaos where a beastman got thrown into the sacrifice. The summoned one was totally unhinged. He didn't understand a word anyone said to him, and the ritual detonated into a bloody tragedy. So ever since then, that floor has only been used for human sacrifices. Reed snaps that this magic is terrible for another reason, and Shura presses him. What does he mean? Reed explains that forging a mana core sounds easy, but you can't just conjure that insane amount of mana by throwing in sacrifices. The core's got one brutal limit. It won't spit out mana flow until the victim's body is shattered. Shura knows that has to change, but the big question hits hard. How could you possibly remove that rule? Reed says desperation and terror can get you there, and then he leans in and asks her if she knows the easiest way to make both hit at once. Through sheer torture, the girl manages to speak, and Reed snaps back that she's smart. They tortured the victims with unending pain and terror, pushing them to the brink because if they died, the core would die with them too. And when their spirits finally shatter to nothing, the core restriction gets lifted, then the subject's bodies start feeding it mana, glowing bright as the light of a curse coming undone. Only once every last step is finished, the summoning ritual can finally kick off, and Shara demands to know how many heroes will be sacrificed. But Reed shrugs off the question, acting like there's no answer at all. He figures this could balloon to hundreds, maybe even 1,000. And last time this ritual was tried, people swore folks were vanishing across the country. Shara flinched and pulled back, and Reinhardt snapped that once it's done, you can't take it back. But even if the Dragonheart just leaves Greyberg alone for now, sooner or later the whole kingdom will still march into war with the demons. He leans in and tells everyone in the room, remember this, keep it in mind. Shura realizes the magic that demands human sacrifice is terrifying, and she can't believe something like that even exists. While the others talked, Reinhardt bragged that he had everything, then leaned in and asked, who's got a report? Daniel's answer hit hard. He had something about the Nut Klein that was just liquidated. Someone stole his body yesterday. Shura ignored every word they said, because the only thing that mattered was one terrifying truth: she still knew nothing about magic. After a while, everyone finally piled into Shara's place to throw a barbecue, and her dad hustled in firewood for the flames, grinning, because for once, they hadn't gone ages without time together. The man said that when Shara and Hilda were little, they'd always grill meat, and just hearing it dragged those memories straight back. Masamune dumped the meat onto the table and bragged, look at all this, there's enough for every servant, so everyone gets to feast. The man gave the young man a grateful nod. Turns out the estate had around 15 maids after all. Then the young man just smirked back that there'd be plenty of meat. He jabbed a finger at the table. There sat some Stein meat they'd been given as a thank you for a mission, and beside it, there was another heap they'd bought themselves. Masamune begged the man to not refuse because this was the only way to repay all the work. The man thanked him, then barked at the maid to summon everyone to the table. Then the young man whipped out 5 bottles of alcohol in another barrel, telling the man to drink the wine because he had plenty more. The man let out a chuckle and bragged that he personally owned a massive vineyard, so yeah, he had a whole lineup of powerful drinks, all kinds. He snatches a bottle of wine and erupts in horror, screaming that he's somehow gripping the old in his own hands. Right then, Nemu bursts in and announces that Shara and Hilda have finally arrived. Soon, everyone dug into the meat and sipped that pricey wine, and even the cook started crying because every bite dragged up old memories he'd tried to bury. Masamune scans the crowd, grinning because everyone's doing fine, then Tola slides up beside him and says, there's nothing better than seeing everyone happy. And just as she finishes, the girl turns to Shara and points out that something's clearly wrong. He stares at the girl all by herself and tells her, don't worry, I can see it just fine, perfectly. Soon he closes the distance, then asks her for permission to sit right beside her. He drops into a seat and demands to know what happened to the girl. Shara leans in and asks Masamune if he's ever heard of summoning heroes. His eyes widen in shock, then he nods and admits he's heard of it. The girl leans in and asks him, does he really know why this ritual is treated as forbidden? Masamune shoots back that he knows all about human sacrifices, and the girl blurts out, then why are you acting so calm? Today, she finally learned just for the first time about the ritual and the brutal sacrifices and torture that came with it. Masamune's stunned. He blurts out, wait, what kind of torture is this? After a while, Shara finally spills the entire truth about the ritual and admits she had absolutely no clue magic like that even existed. Even though she's a royal white knight, she thought she'd be ready for the truth she'd rather bury, yet now magic has her spooked. The boy blurts out, is this really normal? And then shakes his head because not all magic demands sacrifice, and he honestly doesn't think Shara should stress about it. Good hearts and bad hearts will always exist, and so will protective magic and forbidden magic. He's convinced it all comes down to who's casting it. And if she's still struggling, he'll never stop listening to her like he's doing right now. And he adds that Shara's got Toa, Nemu, and Hilda with her, so Shara should keep talking until she finally feels better, because that boy will show up. The girl can't help herself. She lunges in and wraps her arms around the young man. She tells him, "Just call me Shara, no fancy formalities. We're close friends." And then she asks his permission to call him Masamune. Masamune spots Shara crushed by sadness, and he jumps at her proposal without hesitation. Out of nowhere, someone yells at him from the side that it's not fair, then bolts, screaming right to Shara and Masamune, demanding to know what the girl is doing with her master. The girl glares at Shara and snaps that she's being dishonest because she's the only one who hugged Masamune. Shara shrieks that nobody's clinging to anybody, and Nemu fires back, "We were just hugging," because she watched the whole thing. Just then, To strides up and blurts that Shara's already back on her feet. Then the girl rushes to apologize for scaring everyone like that. Masamune tells Nemu that Shara had to talk, so she stayed on the rails and didn't pull any weird moves. And Nemu nods, saying they had already agreed to ditch formalities and go informal. After a while, the Tola finally got the word about the hero's summoning. The girl snapped in shock, so magic was real after all, Masamune pressed her, asking if she truly had never heard of it. And Toa admitted it was the first time she'd ever even caught wind of magic like that. Masamune then blurts that it was all about the ritual meant to summon heroes. Shara just smirks and says, everyone's going to learn the truth soon enough, and it looks like the Kingdom of Greybird already pulled off this forbidden ritual. Shara clocks Masamune's reaction and blurts out that he truly did know about Greyberg. Then she hits him with the real punchline. He never once looked shocked, like he'd been holding something certain the whole time. The young man claims he got this from Dragonheart, and they even warned him before they left that they were heading to Greyberg to investigate the summoning of heroes. Shara leans in and asks, "That's really it?" The young man realizes the girl might have clocked every little thing, and the truth is stacking up in ways nobody can neatly explain because at this point, it's all piled so high, there's no way to back out of it anymore. Masamune grabs the spotlight and promises he'll spill every last detail about these summoned heroes. He finally confesses, "Yeah, I'm one of them." And for a beat, silence drops on everyone like a hammer. The young man freezes because this reaction is nothing like what he thought would happen. Then he blurts out, breathless, that he's been summoned from another world and To can't stop thinking about it. Shara rubs her chin, then blurts that she has no clue how to react to all this, though at least it explains everything that went down to Masamune. She tells him the young man knows next to nothing about this world, and that for healers, Masamune's power is totally off the charts. Reed Black talks about the sacred blessing heroes are granted, like the universe handing them power for the battle ahead. Masamune barges in, demands everyone give him a second, and sets the record straight. Sure, they brought him in as a hero, but the truth is he's anything but. Shara presses him. So what sense does that young man even claim to make of it? He shrugs with a deadpan face and says they kicked him out because he's a healer, yet he's secretly relieved, because somehow it led him to meet all of them. Nemu asks, "So is it good that the master met me?" And the youth grins, like, "I'm sure it's amazing, really, really good." Shara yells for everyone to stop and demands to know what it means that there are others summoned. Besides him, then the young man answers flatly, "It's just as you think." If the kingdom booted Masamune out, does that mean the rest of those guys are even more terrifying than him? Masamune fires back, saying he's heard everyone has their own elite class, so they've got to be monsters in a fight, and Shara can't believe what she just heard. Tilla barges in and snaps, "You can't be stronger than Masamune." Shara fires back, "Why?" The young man snaps his memory back and blurts that Shara and Nemu never saw his true status. Haichi hits his status panel, and Shiru and Nemu are left staring, stunned that this kid's level is triple digits. The girl can't believe it because somehow trusting that someone could be even stronger feels almost impossible. She presses whether Neato's alias could be tied to the summoning too, and Masamune answers, "Yeah, absolutely." The young man swears he's using a pseudonym because he can't let the other conscripts find out he survived.